Good evening. I will call the meeting to order at this time. If you will please rise for the invocation and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. This time I will call on Councilman David Barber to lead us in the invocation.
Let's pray. Lord, I thank you so much for the opportunity we can come, we can do town business. I pray, Lord, everything said and done would be uplifting to our people in our community and would be justification through you. I thank you, Lord, for all you do for us. I pray, Lord, now that you again help us do things in such a way that would be glorifying to your name. For us in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Gentlemen, you have the agenda. There are some known changes that are at your desk. A few things to add to the consent agenda, if you so choose. 4 items: consideration and request for approval following fiscal year in budget amendments, year-end budget amendments for 23-24, year-end project and purchase encumbrances for 23-24, and year-end purchase order encumbrances for 23-24. Then number 2, consideration and request for approval to adopt capital project ordinance number CP-01-2024, closing out 6 capital projects. Number 3, consideration and request for approval to adopt 6 capital project ordinances for grant fundings received. And number 4, consideration and request for approval to allow employees to donate accumulated sick leave hours to an employee in the Public Utilities Water/Sewer Department. Those items should be at your places. Any other changes, additions, corrections to the agenda? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as amended, Mr. Mayor.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. We'll move on now to our first public hearing. This is conditional zoning request Buffalo Ridge, CZ-24-03. Smithfield Land Group LLC is requesting the rezoning of approximately 140 acres of land located at 1041 Buffalo Road, also identified by the Johnston County Tax ID 140001021, from R20A to R8 conditional, with a master plan for a 210-lot detached single-family residential development. This time I will entertain a motion to open the public hearing.
I'll make a motion to open the public hearing, Mr. Mayor.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Steve, I'll turn it over to you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. The subject parcel is here highlighted in yellow, currently R20A. This sits on Buffalo Road, just north of Buffalo Creek, with the Neuse River on the west side. And just for reference, the other Buffalo Road subdivision that was previously discussed, I think in March or May, is across the road. Otis Holland Drive is just to the north. And even further to the north is some open farmland, and then just beyond the screen is the middle school. So they're requesting R8CZ, conditional zoning. This is in town. Again, single-family detached residential. It's in the fire district of Smithfield. Of town utilities. This is a existing conditions map showing the wetland on the property and 100-year floodplain. You can see how the development plan corresponds with the high ground, mostly on the site. Some of the area, some of the lots, particularly the portion on the west of the wetlands, some of that is 100-year floodplain. Just want to make note of that. There's a good number of lots that are 100-year floodplain, which means they will have to elevate and submit elevation certificates for those lots. And other things to note on this drawing is you can see the connections to Holland Drive. There's existing right-of-way on Holland Drive that they're going to be utilizing, building a road into, because the roads were never constructed. So there'll be lateral connection to that development. And you can see there's a walking trail through this development, some storm ponds. They have a mail kiosk near the southern entrance, and I'll get into some more detail. So these are just parts of the development. The lots are all 6,000 square feet. I'm going to be repeating some of this, but the lots are a minimum 6,000 square foot throughout the development. They have a trail along Buffalo Road. There will also be a landscape berm with a fence. And by the mail kiosk here in the south of this drawing, there's a tot lot shown. So they have a private recreational amenity. This is just the full plat submittal. Back to the original. So 68.3 acres of the site is wetland, 19.5 acres in the floodway, 72.4 acres are in the 100-year floodplain, and 7.4 acres in the 500-year floodplain. The site is mostly open with some woods in the lower areas. They're planning to raise up a portion of the 100-year floodplain to create 65 development lots. So that's the impact. 65 lots will be in the 100-year floodplain or elevated out of the 100-year floodplain. Understood? A small portion of the site is also within the water supply critical area watershed, so the zoning for that does apply, and that's primarily dealing with stormwater management and land use. The land use is fine, so it's really stormwater management. 210 lots, 93 acres of open space. They're proposing a 27-foot back-to-back road in a 60-foot public right-of-way in accordance with town standards. They are asking for valley curbs rather than standard upright curbs, which is the town standard. Just want to make that point. As I showed you on the previous slides, there are two entrances just south of the Holland Drive. Will all be town utilities for this. And again, 64 lots will be in the area of the 100-year floodplain. The plan's consistent with the comprehensive plan. The density is lower than what's allowed. I already mentioned the critical watershed area. DOT will be reviewing the access points and any other Buffalo Road improvements that are needed. There will be a TIA required through the plat process, which of course hasn't happened yet, but DOT is aware of this development. I imagine the DOT has given them some indication of where the roads could go, but again, we don't know at this point. I have asked DOT, I kind of have pointed out to DOT all of the projects on Buffalo Road, just so they're aware of what's coming, those that have made application and those that haven't, because there are some other ones being discussed. I have your standard curb and gutter as proposed, but actually they're still asking for valley curb. That's an error on the staff report, or staff write-up here. They are proposing public sidewalks on both sides of public streets. So they are proposing, as I said, 6,000 square foot lots, 50 foot wide, 107 foot deep. They were asking for a front setback of 18 feet. Staff is recommending 25. The side lot, side setback is 5 and the rear is 12. And the corner side yard setback is the same as the front setback. There are no recommendations for parks in the Smithfields Park Plan, so the developer would be submitting for fee in lieu with the plat. HOA will be maintaining all the open space areas and amenities. They are providing a 24-foot wide open space strip along Buffalo Road. As I said, that'll contain the berm with landscaping and a fence. And I believe I have a condition in here that the berm be at least 3 feet tall. And they do provide a loop trail, but since they submitted this plat, I've seen a sketch plan of a development to the north, and they're proposing a trail, and so I'm suggesting here in this slide that the two trails get connected. So they should extend this trail up to the northern boundary so it can be picked up by the next development. As I said earlier, there's a couple stormwater ponds that will be managing stormwater, and again, we'll have to review that for the critical watershed to make sure it meets those standards as well, because that's a little higher level of stormwater. Mill kiosk, as I mentioned earlier, has parking for 11 vehicles, and that is by the entrance and next to a tot lot, so it'll serve both. We do require a concrete apron at the private parking lots to kind of differentiate the public and the private. So for architectural standards, they're proposing vinyl, shingles, shutters, and architectural trim. We're asking that whatever standards are approved be included in the HOA documents. And we also ask that additional architectural details be provided for the homes in graphic format so we can get a look of what they look like, and that they provide actual percentages of materials, whether it's brick, stone, or other. Could consider higher quality materials such as cement siding, brick or stone, and have some requirements for the corner sides so they don't have blank walls on the corner lots. Just for example, this is what Marion Woods provided for architectural details, and I did provide what they had written for standards to the right on this exhibit that corresponded with the images. So the images are probably above the standards that were actually written. So, the basic, most of the houses on the Marion Woods images, exceed their standards, just so you know. But that is what I would expect. So what actually got built at Marion Woods is a little bit less than what they had provided in the original pictures. So just stressing the importance of the architectural standards and the graphics that match the standards. And that, to me, that's something that staff feels should be expected of the development. They are providing a buffer along the Holland Drive lots. They've got a 10-foot landscape buffer. And also, as I mentioned, the 24 feet along Buffalo Road. And they are providing some enhanced landscaping at the entrances to the development. They will be proposing monument signs at both entrances, and they're thinking phase 1 would be expected around 2025 and build out somewhere around 5 years, so 2030 for build out. So what they're asking for deviations from town requirements, they're requesting from 70 feet down to 50 feet, 8,000 square foot lots to 6,000 square foot lots, setback from 30 to 25. I'm sorry, they've already changed, since the planning board, they've already changed the setback to be 25. So I think previous I had mentioned it was 18. I missed that on the slide. Side setbacks, 10 feet down to 5 feet, and rear setbacks from 25 to 12. Where they're exceeding standards, concrete curb and gutter along Buffalo Road with NCDOT approval, and DOT is aware of it and is okay with it. A street yard with a berm, 6-foot fence along Buffalo Road, buffer along the north property line against the existing homes, enhanced landscaping at the entrances, some architectural standards, and a loop trail. Staff finds it consistent with the comprehensive plan, and it meets the conditional zoning requirements as a negotiated zoning district, so it's whatever gets approved tonight is consistent with with the Unified Development Ordinance. And I do believe it'll be consistent with the surrounding land uses, given the buffers and the 6,000 square foot lots. So, again, this slide is directed to the planning board, but it's the same for the council. I would stress that you review the architectural standards and make sure it's what the town council is comfortable with. I believe the loop trail should extend to the north, as previously discussed, and then if there's any other changes that you would suggest. I'm sorry, I think the wrong slide show got attached. But anyway, we're looking for recommending conditions. The first one's acknowledging the deviations. Corner setbacks equal to the front, being the second one. The berm along Buffalo Road be 3 feet high. That the development plans be in accordance with the overlay district. The curb and gutter be provided along Buffalo Road. That there be garages provided be no less than 12 by 22 foot in size, so at least a standard minimum one-car garage. All concrete driveway aprons be provided for the residential driveways and the mailbox kiosk parking. The 8-foot trail be provided along Buffalo Road, which they actually have shown. Architectural standards be included in the HOA. The open space amenities be maintained by the HOA. A traffic study be done with a preliminary plat approval. Loop trail be extended to the north. Sidewalks be added to both sides of, that sidewalks be added to both sides of new streets. That was a planning board requirement. And the development should be developed with only single-family detached residential, which is what they're proposing, but that was a planning board requirement that was added. That the rear setback be 20 feet, except along Holland Drive lots where the setback should be increased to 25. That's a planning board request. And then there's some architectural requirements that the planning board has asked for, that all homes have a combination of 2 or more of the following materials on the front: facade, bricks, stone, lap siding, shakes, or board and batten. That all corner units contain a window with decorative trim or door for each 30 feet or fraction of continuous side elevation. All garages have windows or decorative hardware. And to promote variation of the home appearance, no adjacent home may use the same color siding. No front elevation shall be constructed adjacent to or across from identical elevation. And for corner lots, this applies to lots catty-corner from the intersection, and a consistent color palette be used. These standards come directly out of the Marin Wood standards, so that's why I showed you those slides earlier. If you guys feel there's any changes you would wish, I just want to make note of that. And then number 17 is just a condition that the loop trail be extended northward. And with that, are there any questions?
Okay. Thank you, Stephen. Any questions from the council for staff?
Steve, you mentioned a buffer down Buffalo Road. Did you say anything about a buffer to the houses on the backside of Holland Drive as well?
Yes, there's a 10-foot type A buffer they're proposing.
So that buffer, is that included in the 25 feet, or is it the 10-foot buffer and then 25 feet?
The 25-foot that the planning board was discussing was the setback, because the developer was proposing a 12-foot setback. The planning board wants a 25-foot setback in that area. They want the houses further away from Holland Drive.
From the property line?
Yeah, from the rear property line, which is separate than the buffer. The buffer is a 10-foot buffer.
The berm along Buffalo Road, 3 feet or greater, where backyard space, state road. And we talked about a 6-foot fence. So is that 6-foot fence going on top of that 3-foot berm?
We didn't get an actual elevation of the berm, but that could be made a condition if that's what the council wishes.
Yeah. What do we do at across from Amazon. I thought it's a 6 foot.
That's not built yet, but I
Burn- burn
believe, I'm not 100% sure. I believe that is, the fence is at least partially on the berm, but I'm not entirely sure. I know Marin Woods, it's sitting in, it's on the,
On 210.
what is it there? I think it's on top of the berm.
It's shorter.
It looks very good to me. The one on Burnworth looks really good.
Yeah.
Very clean looking, looks very good to me.
Yes.
Because then they got sidewalks in front of it, so it looks really nice. You can't see the back of the people's yards, that's the main thing I can say. I don't see anybody's junk, so.
Mayor, I have a few comments. Mr. Winsman, thank you for bringing the presentation. I have some major concerns with, in regards to the location. Specifically, we have a R8 recommendation, and they're asking again for smaller lots. That's I don't know why we can't, why do we have UDO if we're not going to use it, but can you please go back to slide number 5? Aside from the traffic that this is going to congest, the Buffalo Road is going to become an entrance to Smithfield with the Interstate Highway 42.
Is that the one you want?
Slide number 5, that's the water issue.
That's fine.
And if you would, Mr. Winsman, am I correct that this road over here to the right of your screen, in fact, is Buffalo Road?
Correct.
And then that channel back behind there is the Neuse River, correct?
Correct.
Okay. We already have a major water issue in this area. And if you look at the elevation, if I understand it correctly, there is a stream or a makeshift ditch that runs through that property. My point in pointing that out to you, the river is to the left, but all the water is going to go to the right. It's going to go under that road, and it already floods. So to me, this is going to, we already have major stormwater issues in Smithfield. To me, that has got to be something that we take into consideration in this case. Because I don't know what the regulation looks like as far as a pipe or underwater. We already have a berm. They're talking about elevating and making it more impervious with adding these houses. I just struggle with why we are even considering this when it doesn't meet the UDO standards. And we already have stormwater issues, and the traffic is also a major issue in this area.
Other comments? Questions? So I guess I have one similar to Councilman Scott as far as the stormwater. I mean, obviously, that is a concern in that area. And then we're elevating, what did you say, 65 lots to bring those out of the flood zone. I understand they're coming out of the flood zone, but elevating those lots still could have an impact on runoff and stormwater, right? So what are staff's thoughts there around that? I
Well,
mean, that's a bit
sure.
concerning.
Sure.
Elevating lots or houses?
The lots.
Well, the houses will be out of the floodplain. You're right. Good point.
So
Some of the lots,
they're elevating the houses.
the houses will
That's
be out of
not,
the
I don't think that's
floodplain.
what this says in
Yeah,
the
I guess I
presentation.
could, when the developer gets up to speak, I guess we could ask.
They're
for
elevating the
clarification.
houses, that's one thing, but I don't believe that's what was stated
We
in
don't
the
have, yeah,
presentation.
you're absolutely correct. You know, we don't have a detailed grading plan at that level. My assumption is that, I mean, they're obviously building in the 100-year floodplain, and there will be houses there. I don't know if the lots will be 100% out of the 100-year floodplain or just the houses. That is not clear, and the developer can provide that clarity. But regarding the stormwater, I mean, we do require stormwater management. They are going to meet the UDO for stormwater management, which holds back, I believe it's a 20-year storm. And then I think there's a little bit higher level, I'm not the engineer on this, but I think there's a little higher level of stormwater requirement with the overlay district, and I'm not sure how many of the houses are actually in the overlay district, and if you know, both storm ponds are impacted by that or not at this level, because again, it hasn't been engineered. And you're right, I mean, the houses will be out of the 100-year, the houses will be out of the 100-year, because they have to be in order to be built. They have to be built with a 2-foot freeboard. That means 2 feet above the 100-year flood elevation. And of course, you know, we do have large floods, and so that freeboard requirement is something that I always want to look closely at. Is 2 feet enough? But they're meeting the UDO, because that's what's in our UDO. You know, yes, they're adding impervious, but every development in the town of Smithfield adds impervious, and the stormwater all ends up in the same rivers and creeks. So we're meeting the state standards for stormwater. They're going to meet the state standards for stormwater. Yes, Buffalo Road's impacted. It does flood, has flooded in the past. I don't know if this is going to make it flood more. It's those high-intensity rainfalls where the storm ponds basically get overrun, anything greater than a 20-year storm. So every pond in the city, when you get those extreme storms, yes, the ponds exceed capacity, and they do have an emergency overflow, and that's when flooding can still happen. But otherwise, on the smaller storms, all that water is going to stay on site.
Any other questions from council? Ms. Hunt?
Mayor, I have another question.
Yep.
And it deals with the driveway ordinance. And again, 8,000 square foot lot size seems reasonable. If you look at the map, I'm pretty sure that's pretty close to scale. It would almost equal 3 lots, that the new ones, that is one on Holland Drive, and it doesn't seem fair. But Mr. Winsman, my question to you is, the UDO says, and I believe it's even highlighted for later tonight, about the driveway ordinance, that it should not exceed 50% of the front yard. Well, that math don't jive if you've got these small lots, and obviously the yard's going to be smaller. I mean, how does that math work? Because the driveway's going to be bigger. If you look at some of the other ones, that's what the results were. I'm curious.
Yeah, you'll still find that there's still more grass than there is pavement.
Are we counting the grass on the whole subdivision, or are we counting the yard size?
Of each yard, the driveway cannot exceed 50% of the front yard. So, I mean, that's the standard that we're looking at. And these lots, I mean, all of 6,000 square foot lots is, you know, the lots, I think, in Pine Acres and not sure about Pine Acres, but certainly over by Community Action, that whole neighborhood. So those are actually decent-sized lots, and the driveways are not 50% of the yard.
And the other thing, and then I'll hush. I appreciate your recommendation for the curb and gutter. I think the council needs to take that in consideration if this project moves forward, because the street parking and the narrow pathways, obviously with the small lots, are going to make a difference. And the purpose of that curb, from what you've shared with us before, would eliminate some of that problem. Is that correct?
That is correct. I do want to make a point that did not make it into the conditions for the planning board, but the developer talked about having the HOA manage on-street parking. Whether or not that's effective, I don't know. I think it's something that they'd be willing to conditionalize, but the planning board did not make it a condition, so it's not reflected in the staff report. So that they're willing to do that in lieu of doing a standard curb.
Well, Mr. Winsman, the HOA doesn't even exist today, and I disagree that we should assume that they'll take care of the problem later. Now's the time to address that. I have questions. Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions?
From a stormwater perspective, is valley curb better than curb and gutter from a stormwater perspective?
I'm not an engineer on that. I believe they're both designed to handle a storm. I don't know if one is better than the other. Both are recognized as approvable curbs. It's just that our town has decided, at least in the past, has recommended standard curb, and in occasions, we've allowed valley curb. The draft standards that I worked on with Bill and our consultant has a standard curb as the curb.
Has this, say that last
The standards, we have some engineering standards, you know, we have the engineering specifications and standards manual. We have a draft one that is an update to what we currently have adopted. And the future recommended is for a standard curb. That's where Bill and I and the consultant had prepared for our standard detail. Of course, not adopted by the council yet.
Standard curb, so in no valley, you're saying?
Valley curb would require council approval.
Okay. Yeah, all right. Make sure I understood that correctly.
Yeah, sorry.
That's all good, thank you.
I have a couple questions. So on slide number 6, we're talking about stormwater. I'm curious if this is indication of where they were looking at putting some stormwater ponds, retention ponds. Is there one down there on that left-hand side at the bottom? Is that what that is?
Yes, that's a pond.
And there's another one up there next to on the bottom of the other, is that also a retention pond?
Yeah, by the mail kiosk.
So they're planning on adding, because I was thinking, like, they can't put it because you're reducing pervious, you're increasing non-pervious surface, so you're gonna have more runoff than had before, so how are they gonna handle it? They're not expecting nature to handle it by itself, it's not gonna happen, right? So they're planning on putting the 2 retention ponds in.
right.
I'm assuming they've done the engineering on it to.
I can't say they've done the engineering yet. I think
Yeah,
there's,
it says, that's
these
probably what
edu-
the note said, that they're planning to do a water study, but it hasn't been
yeah,
done.
you know, at this level at zoning, we don't necessarily require engineering. I mean, it's
Right.
informed by engineers, but it's not engineered.
So we don't have any idea whether that's going to be adequate or not at this point.
They may come back with a larger storm pond. They will have to meet stormwater regulations,
Right.
and they will get reviewed by our town engineer. So, I mean, they've got the room to build a bigger pond if they needed to. If they can't, they'll lose lots in the final plan.
right.
I mean, they have to meet stormwater.
But it's clear that they understand that there's obviously a need to add some type of, they can't just rely upon existing runoff because,
Correct.
again, to Councilman Scott's point, it already has flooding already, so we can't rely upon that
That's right.
at all. And the other question I had was related to, just a question. I don't know, I'm just way early, so they probably don't have an idea about that. Is this supposed to be a maintenance-free subdivision, or do they have their own lawn mowers and stuff like that? I just didn't know.
My understanding is that it's not maintenance-free. The HOA will maintain the open space, but not the lots.
They'll just have to, they'll be supervised, I mean, they'll be policing their own standards as far as,
I would imagine, like at most developments, there will be standards that the HOA has to uphold, but we've not seen those yet.
which means Town of Smithville's not going to have to necessarily take that on because they should be self-monitoring themselves. Is that what
Most
you're?
HOAs do that,
Because
yes.
that's, again, it's added work for our town. If we have to take on the task of
Yes.
monitoring who's cutting their grass and who's not cutting their grass, because we struggle keeping up with it now. And so that would be, not saying that we couldn't do it if they did violate, of course, but, all right, those are the things I'm concerned about.
Any other comments, questions?
Just one little comment. I know there'll have to be a traffic impact study. That's a 2-lane road all the way out to what will be Highway 42 right now. And this is a right good sized subdivision. There's another subdivision that's come before us once, very close by. That traffic impact study will just determine turnout lanes, signalization, is that all? I mean, it doesn't have anything to do with the actual road work itself.
I am not exactly sure. I did try to arrange a meeting with DOT to kind of look at all of the developments along here to see if there's more of a comprehensive look that we should be doing. But they said just have them do TIAs and they will work through the issues one by one. So I think it's probably like you're saying. They're going to require turn lanes, maybe a stoplight at the school is what I'm anticipating somewhere down in the future. I don't know what else they'll be requiring.
Stephen, a while back, when the DOT came here, several years ago, and presented some things that they were doing, I believe they showed us some stuff on Buffalo Road and what some of their plans were, did they not?
I
At the
don't
one
believe I
time,
was
it was
here.
a 4-lane road with a turning thing, and then next thing, it became a 3-lane road, and now I don't hear anything about any changes. So, I mean, obviously, I don't know what's going on with that. I don't know if they've updated you on anything. They haven't come by and talked to anybody in a while, have they? I mean,
The last communication I had, north of Durwood Stevenson Parkway, it was supposed to be a 3-lane rural road, with the center lane being turn lanes. That has not been designed yet. I don't think it's been funded yet. We did get extra right-of-way in East River to prepare for that. With this development, they've not indicated what they're going to do. So, yeah, I don't know.
so outside of this scope, is there a way we can get a update from DOT where they come and have a presentation for us on what their plans are? Because it affects the things that we do. If we have no idea what they're thinking, not necessarily funded, but what are they thinking? If they're not thinking of it, then the likelihood of that happening is even further away.
Yeah, I can ask, but again, I did try to get a meeting to, with all the stakeholders, DOT, and they responded back, just to have them do TIA. So I don't know what their willingness is to come present. I don't know. I can ask.
I think we need to use our connections to try to get that done. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, it's also a big issue where Buffalo Road hits Hospital Road and what's the next street? North Street.
Yeah.
That's sort of unresolved.
Any further questions, comments at this time? Stephen, what's the side setback? You showed Marion Woods, and as far as
Marion Woods is a 5-foot.
it is 5 foot?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think
And that's
out there,
what they're
most of the
asking.
homes have more than 5-foot actual setback as built
In Marion Woods?
in Marion Woods. Yeah, I think the setbacks are all, I can't say all, but most of them are larger than 5 foot once they're built.
That's what I was, yeah.
This is
Yeah.
gonna be somebody's side yard to the main. Why is this even here?
I have a question. So on slide number 7, so I guess the question is this cul-de-sac thing down there? Why is that there?
That cul-de-sac there is to provide lot frontage for lots 109, 104 through 109. So those lots don't back up to Buffalo Road. You'll see the sides of the houses facing Buffalo Road. It's to the north of this cul-de-sac where you actually have backyards facing Buffalo Road. So it's a mix of fronts and backs.
I guess my question is, why is there not a driveway proposed there instead of a cul-de-sac? I mean, you're at the road. You're at the road.
Yeah, but DOT probably wouldn't allow another connection to Buffalo Road, so they had to cul-de-sac it.
So the side yard's gonna be, again, just in reference, that straight line there to the right of that. There's 2 existing lots there, and then that's Buffalo Road. So again, your berm and your fence that's gonna be obvious. I mean, to me, a cul-de-sac goes at the end of I understand Councilman Barber's question. Usually goes at the end of the subdivision, but again, I guess it's to amplify to get the right, and I guess the builder could address that. Is that the look Smithfield really wants? That's that question to this board.
I got another one here, too.
Yeah, but that's on the river.
Yeah. River's down, yeah.
Any other comments, questions at this time?
Oh, I see. It's way up here.
Okay. This time, if there's anyone in the audience wishing to speak, please come forward.
The developer is here if you'd like the developer to step forward.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Go ahead.
Yeah, you can go ahead. Yeah. If you will, please state your name and address for the record, please.
Rick Buckner, 106 Cobblestone Court. Before I get into a couple of things I wanted to throw out there, one thing to keep in mind with this neighborhood too, it's going to add a lot of additional traffic to Second and Third Street because all those people are going to have to go through that neighborhood in order to get to 70. So it doesn't just affect Buffalo Road and that traffic. They're all going to be going down North, Second, and Third Street as well when they need to go to 70 and Market Street. But appreciate the opportunity. I know typically I get up here and just kind of do a spiel and a rant and not looking to I guess, fight the change that's coming. We obviously know there's going to be a lot of change, and we just want to make sure that it's well planned, well thought out, well executed, and we have a great result in the end. So instead of kind of fighting back and resisting, it's more about how can we work together to get the desired result we all want. At the end of the day, I moved my family out here because I love the Smithfield community, and I believe you guys probably had a lot to do with creating the community we like. So I'm hoping that we can work together to keep the community what we all want. One of the biggest frustrations that I have and we have around town when we talk is the density. I know that they say, well, that's just what the market dictates, but the market's definitely being groomed by developers and investors. If you provide some houses that have bigger lots and they don't sell, guess what happens? The prices go down. People can afford them again. So I understand, this is the demand lately, but that's the demand that's been created. The market's definitely being groomed, and city councils are kind of helping enable that. So when it comes to density, please focus on the unbuildable land as well, because a lot of this wetland is factored into that density, and it's not fair to us to actually have land on our property. At this point, I just have a couple questions. Again, just making sure that it's a well thought out plan and well executed. It seems like we're approving a lot of neighborhoods before other neighborhoods are even finished developing. I think the townhouses, Franklin Towns, aren't even filled up yet. They're struggling to sell. But that just leads me to assume that you guys probably have talked about this and say, okay, we can support X amount population or we can support X amount of houses. If not, we're just blindly approving things. So I guess my question to you is, based on our current resources, keeping in mind today was a requested water conservation day because we didn't have enough water due to the farmlands needing to irrigate. So I can only imagine adding a couple thousand homes is only going to compound some of these existing matters. So at this point, based on our current resources, water, police, fire department, schools, which I brought up a few different times, and as we learned last time I spoke, that some of these buses have over 60 elementary kids on them to one adult driver, not ideal. So we have a lot of opportunities. So my question to you is, what is the maximum amount of houses or what is the maximum population that you guys believe Smithfield can support? Because we're continuing to approve these houses and they're going to bring on more population. They're going to bring on a lot more traffic, which is a big frustration for a lot of us. I got videos where traffic's backed up from the college all the way to 2nd Street from green light to green light to green light. Just certain times of the day is a nightmare. So adding another 10,000 cars to Smithfield. I understand that I spoke to somebody one time after one of these meetings, and they said there's a 10-year road plan. So is that 10-year road plan addressing the current needs? And if so, is it going to be too little too late once we add all these houses, and now we need to have another 10-year road plan, and we're stuck for another 10 years of these nightmares? So again, it's not to just resist change. It's really to make sure that it's well planned, well executed, and a great result in the end. I understand that there's a new elementary school that's going to be built. I don't know if there's going to be a new middle school or a new high school. I don't know what the turnaround time is on that. You guys probably do. Are those things going to be done before all these houses are completed, or are we just going to compound these matters and it's going to get worse before it gets better? I mentioned at one of the last meetings, I don't want my kids' schooling to suffer while it gets worse to get better. I don't want my kids to take one for the team. So again, I guess those are a couple of the questions that I had. I don't know if you can answer them. I hope you guys know what you have in mind. But just what's the maximum population we're shooting for? At what point do we say, you know what, that's enough? Or, hey, we need to make these areas a little bit less condensed and spread out the population a little bit. I don't mind this neighborhood going here, but I'd love to see 1 acre lots. You say, is this the Smithfield that we want to see? It's not. Everybody in the community does not like the apartment buildings. They don't like the townhouses, and some of these neighborhoods are basically just hybrid townhouses that have been that have been separated by 5 feet. So again, it's a matter of let's work together. Let's get what you guys want. Obviously, tax revenue is going to help the city thrive. But again, if we're maxing out our resources and you condense a lot of population in one area and we don't have the schools, we don't have the police departments, crime goes up, the quality of the living in the town goes down. And ultimately, that's what we don't want as a community. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else wishing to speak? The developers, well, we'll let.
I'm Judy Lugo, and I live at 108 Cobblestone Court. I have some concerns. I don't know if y'all are there when school is in session in the mornings and in the afternoons when kids are coming in and out of school. The traffic is backed up unbelievably. If you've been watching your Facebook page on the Smithfield Community Facebook page, you probably have seen some people complaining about all the traffic that's over there. So I do want us to really think about the road and the traffic that's over there. Suppose somebody needed to get their EMS or to one of the schools or the park. You know, I know, you know, when you get traffic and it's backed up, where are they going to pull over? There's only a 2-lane road there. They're going to pull over on the side of the road. I hope so, especially if somebody needs help, but that's a concern. You know, we've got a big park and it stays busy with activities and athletics, and we've just got a really nice community here. I've lived here all my life. I'm sure a lot of y'all have too. Our kids have grown up together. But I do think we really need to think about the school situation. I think we, you know, need to plan that out. We need to plan it. I just feel like there's so much growth in so many areas of this town. And I agree, we are supposed to grow. And I want us to grow, but grow wisely. Between the traffic, the schools. I think our police departments right now have 20 vacancies. If we don't have the law enforcement to keep our community safe, how do we do that? You know, we need more law enforcement if we're going to have this many homes. And with these homes comes two drivers in each home if you have a husband and a wife, and then if they have a teenager, there's a third one. I heard somebody say something about street parking, somebody to monitor street parking. I'm like, I would have never thought that my kid couldn't park in front of our house if we needed to. You know, would I have been in trouble with our HOA? You know, these things are things that really need to be thought out. I know that with growth comes change, but, you know, I would like for our kids to be able to grow up in the same community that we grew up in, you know, of where they do have a backyard to play in. And they don't have to schedule a time to be on a pickleball court. You know, I mean, we just need to really think wisely. And I know I live in Bradford Park, and I do think if we're zoned for the 8,000 square feet, I don't think it needs to be dropped. You know, you need to have more separation in these houses because not everybody has common sense when it comes to grilling or cooking. I don't want my neighbor's house 2 doors down to catch on fire and we have to all evacuate, and where's the kids? You know, I mean, these are things that we all need to really think about. And I just, as a mom and a Mimi and somebody that works in the medical field, I just think we really ought to think about that. And I really do hope y'all will take that into consideration because I don't want to see anybody's kid, grandkid, grandmother, anybody get hurt, you know, or caught in a fire or anything like that, because it is scary. We live in a day and time where crazy things happen, you know, and we don't want that. I want a safe community, and I want us to all be able to help our neighbor, you know. But I just think we really need to do a little more planning on keeping things safe, because not everybody is wise when it comes to cooking, or, you know, I don't want somebody to catch their house on fire and 2 or 3 houses burn, you know? So, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Luther. Anyone else wishing to speak?
I'm Gene Bruton. I live at 105 Cobblestone Court here in Smithfield. And I want to talk a little bit about the two developments right here on Buffalo Road. Because I am greatly, greatly, greatly concerned about the water problem. I've given you pictures. I've walked around the lake that's down there in the woods, taking pictures and giving you pictures over and over of the water problem. And I want to tell you, you have not seen anything yet. And we're trying to say it's going to be taken care of, and like Wendy said, you're making the smaller lots, you're putting roads in there and all these things, and the water is not going to be able to soak down in the ground and run underneath. And then with what I've seen of the pictures of this development, it's going to push all the water back to Buffalo Road to hit the creek to go out to the river. I'm going to tell you what's going to happen. It's going to be flooding like you have never, ever imagined and seen. And I want you to think about it seriously. Because you're messing with the wetlands, you're narrowing the spaces down in the wetlands, and the wetlands were put there for protection of the people, protection of the community, to keep people from losing what they got, their property, things being torn up and so forth. That wetland is really a bad situation that you're facing. Another thing is, when I looked at the first development, and there are going to be 220 houses in there, and then I understand that they had narrowed those down to where it's amazing how little and how many homes are going to be put in there. And then I noticed that they're giving 35 acres to the city of Smithfield. You know what hit me? And what I've heard some other people? That's a bribe to get what they want. I hope and pray it's not. Because I hope it don't affect anybody else. Because I can tell you, my home will be affected by what's going on. I'll guarantee it. Because I had to put a pump system all in my home, underneath my home, and in my yard. And if every time it rains hard now, that system pumps the water out. It's the only way we can have a decent yard. And if you want to go see a good-looking yard, go by and look at mine. I got flowers all over the place while I try to make it beautiful here. But I'm concerned about our whole development, because from this development, the other development is coming, the water's coming on both sides back into us. And like I said, I've walked it, and I've seen the water up there off of Buffalo Road running down into our subdivision, as well as I've seen it in the woods behind. And we need to think about that. Because sometimes it gets really, really bad. If it gets really, really bad, there's going to be some repercussions. Because people's homes will be damaged because of the water. And I can see the same thing happening over here. So I want you to think about it. I want you to really, some of you that's got those pictures, go back and look at those pictures. And these were in dry times. What's going to happen when the hurricanes come through? What's going to happen when all the bad thunderstorms and stuff rain down? Where's that water going? My backyard, my front yard. their backyard, their front yard. Because we've seen it. And now you're fixing to pump so many more gallons of water from the natural source of rain and storms on us. And this is going to pump even more. And so we're going to make houses and so forth in wetlands. Why did they develop it as wetlands? And they didn't want them to put houses there. Was there any reason, any logic behind it to keep the rest of us? And now, are you going to change it? What's the consequences going to be? Because I'll tell you from a fact, it will flood. It will flood. And there will be a loss of property because of the flood and the water. Period. And I thank you for letting me tell you, but I wanted to say that because I don't want to see it. I like Smithfield, love Smithfield. Raised all my children here. And I don't want to see it happen. But I've walked it. I went all the way around it, all the way up, taking pictures everywhere, showing it. And it was in, like I said, in a dry time when I did that. If it was that much water then, how much water is it going to be with this and that other one on the other side of the street, running all into the creek that runs to the river? You're not going to be able to get across that road out there on Buffalo Road for a long, long time. And the mud's going to come in. And you know what? You're putting 430 new houses in there. And all those people, 210 here, 220 on the other one. And all those people are going to be messing with that. And with the schools, you're not with the roads like it is. Unless you go in there and build them way up high, they're not going to be able to make it and go to school. They're not going to be able to make it to come into business and then see what kind of problems you got. Thank you for letting me express my opinion.
If you'd like to talk, please come to the front, please.
Mr. Root was talking about flooding. I know y'all were here with the last hurricane we had, right? When it flooded, you couldn't get on Highway 70 going to West Smithfield. You couldn't come down Smithfield and go out Buffalo Road. I mean, it was flooded everywhere, So this road, Buffalo Road, Highway 70, I mean, we had to go around our elbow just to try to get ice. I think we were without power and stuff for 9 days. So unless we have done a lot of building with our roadways around Neuse River, we really need to think about that. And I appreciate y'all's patience with us. Thank you.
Ms. Lupa. Anyone else wishing to speak on this matter?
I'm sorry, just one last question. I feel like I do.
Yeah, that's fine.
Are we trying to bring in some more jobs that can help support these $300,000, $400,000 mortgages? Because we're going to add like 1,000 homes, and I can't think of 1,000 jobs that pay those kind of wages without packing it took me an hour and a half to get to Glenwood today, because all we're doing is just packing the highways because everybody has to commute to where they can work to afford to live here. So is there anything that we're doing to try to attract jobs to the area to help support all the population? And then again, the questions that I asked earlier, I'm going to come back to the next meeting as far as, what are the plans, in regards to the resources and what's the maximum we can support. Because again, we're approving so many things before we even see the impact the other will have before they're even built. So just kind of curious what are we doing to get some jobs here to support these 1,000 houses that we want to build? So these are just questions I'm hoping we can have answered at the next council meeting. Thank you.
I believe the developer is here. If you'd like to come forward, please. And are there any questions or comments from staff? for the developer.
Start with questions, or?
Yeah, let's see if
Kind of respond to a couple things?
let's see if the council has any.
Okay.
And then, certainly we can address any questions that we may have. Any questions for the developer at this time? But yeah, so I don't need, maybe some more as we start talking.
No
but
worries.
Maybe, obviously you've heard water, and water being a major, it's one of my concerns, right? And if you could speak a little bit to that as far as what the plans are, as far as controlling water for this subdivision and so forth.
Sure. My name is Greg Stewart. I work with Retz and Companies. I will be the project manager for this project. My colleague Richard is also here, and we'll answer questions as we can. I will tell you our engineer, Scott Brown from 4D, he was at the planning board meeting. He addressed a lot of the planning board. He's been working hard with Steve to make sure all of the issues are addressed. He had a death in the family. He was unable to be here tonight. Not a civil engineer, but I can address some of your questions that have come up. I agree with the gentleman who spoke earlier. As a developer, we want to work with the community to make sure that anything we develop inside this community or any community fits within the community and takes the community's concerns to heart and make sure we're not causing any more issues. A couple of things I've heard tonight are traffic. One has come up a lot. NCDOT, I don't know if anyone's ever worked with NCDOT. They have a manual that's 782 pages long. NCDOT is a government agency that permits every driveway and every road that goes into Smithfield and the state of North Carolina. They will not let us put any driveway or any type of situation or development that is going to cause a traffic hazard. It is not easy to work with NCDOT. I do it every day. So as far as traffic concerns, I know a lot of people have spoken about traffic. NCDOT has traffic engineers who, that is their degree, that is their job, that is their profession. They will not allow us to have a driveway or any type of subdivision that does not meet their code and their standards. As far as water is concerned, there have been some misconceptions. I know that the gentleman said that we're building in a, not a floodplain. Wetlands. If you'll look at that, there are no development or proposed development being in the wetlands. Mr. Weidsman, as he said, some of the houses in the back may be built in the floodplain, but I'd also like you to keep this in mind. We haven't even got survey back yet. This is a conceptual drawing for a zoning meeting. So the key here is, does it meet the comprehensive plan? Does this neighborhood and this subdivision fit into the overall plan for the town of Smithfield? If that's the case, then we will do our due diligence with survey. We will start to do grading plans. We will start to do water infrastructure. We work with the town. That is when all of those development and design will happen. Mr. Scott Brown, I've worked with him for a long time. He is very good at what he does. Now, to address the concerns about water. It sounds like currently through some of the community members' statements that there's concerns about water because there's already water that is a problem in that area. Well, one reason could be because that water is unmitigated. That water is doing what it naturally has done for years. That is what it's done. There's a farm there, but that water is getting to do exactly what it wants to do. This subdivision could potentially mitigate that water and move it into directions that's more handleable for the systems. As far as the Department of Environmental Quality and stormwater, I think Mr. Scott had a question. DEQ regulates all types of stormwater. Mr. Weinsman hit it on the head when he said those ponds might get larger. Some of those lots might go away. We're not going to be able to do anything we want to do and just put a house anywhere we want to put it. There are local agencies, there are state agencies, there are federal agencies that have to sign off on everything we do, along with the town of Smithfield. So as far as stormwater, as far as traffic, as far as capacity, all of these things, professionals and other agencies, we have to check and balance each step of the way. Currently, I'd love to give you those answers. We're too early in the process for that. This is a zoning meeting to see if this zoning fits within the plan of the town of Smithfield. I'll reiterate Mr. Weinsman's sentiments. It follows the comprehensive plan. It follows the future land use plan. The walking trail that they're discussing about extending. He mentioned a neighborhood to the north, and apparently there's a neighborhood that was proposed across the street. It's obvious there's growth coming to this area. The town of Smithfield has a park. For those of you in development or familiar with development, anytime you see amenities like parks, that is the town's way of saying this is the area that we'd like to serve. Those parks aren't there to serve farmland. They're there to serve human beings and residents of the area. So it is primed for growth. Now, as far as design efforts, civil engineers, engineers that work with Department of Transportation, engineers that work with stormwater, all of those professionals are going to be the ones that sign off on that. And like I said, I'd love to have you those answers now. I just don't. We're too early in that process, but you will get them. Nothing will happen in this development that is not signed off on by the state agencies and everyone that is set to make sure it is safe and a subdivision is done the right way. If you have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them from a development standpoint. As I said, I'm not a civil engineer, so some of the specifics, obviously I won't be able to do that. Richard is also here if you have any questions specifically, but I just wanted to reiterate that planning staff has done a great job. I think one thing to keep in mind as a developer, if you're in front of you, you should have 17 different conditions. To me, 17 different conditions says that we are working with the town of Smithfield to make sure that all of these boxes are checked. This is just to start with. We haven't even gotten into the other stuff. But I think it shows as a developer, we're willing to work with the town of Smithfield and other government agencies to make sure this is done the right way. And to the gentleman's point who spoke earlier, that's our goal as well. I couldn't agree more with what he said. I think growth is coming to the area of Smithfield, and as a developer, we want to do it the right way and make sure the community is also considered. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to do my best to answer them.
Any questions?
Greg, I have a few questions. Thank you for your presentation.
Sure.
Based on the preliminary plan and the layout that you guys have fit in the property, what if this was to come to fruition? What in phase of build out do you pursue? Would it be with the same driveways, or I'm curious of how that would work?
Yeah. So as far as I think that's a two-part question. As far as build out, that's the economy is going to drive a lot of that. Materials, we will build it out in phases and as the lot allows. But as far as driveways and how, I think to someone, I forget whose question, Mr. Barber's question, maybe yourself, about the cul-de-sac at the end, that's going to be an NCDOT thing. If NCDOT says, hey guys, that cul-de-sac doesn't go there, you're going to have to remove these two lots and extend another entranceway, those two lots are gone, the entranceway would then come. But as far as the roads, we don't control, NCDOT will dictate exactly how we enter, exit that, the subdivision, and like I said, they're not easy to get along with if you've ever worked with NCDOT. As Mr. Wiseman said, that meetings.
Let me restate the question.
Okay, sorry.
How many phases would you see this would take? You said it based on the demand or based on the market. I may have put that word in there, but so this could be a three-phase project or?
Currently, we're looking at 2 phases.
Okay.
But again, that's all going to be driven by demand of houses. We could, if we have demand, it could be 1 phase, it could be 3 phases, but the goal right now currently is 2 phase. But again, the home builder has a lot of control over that as well.
And Greg, the reason I asked that question is I don't know if you're very familiar with our sewer capacity issues, but I think it would be reasonable for this council to consider that we would ask you to obtain the whole capacity for this versus based on the phase. Are you familiar with what I'm talking about?
So it's my understanding that there's a project to enhance the capacity for sewer. As far as our subdivision and our development, that would be something that we would absolutely want to make sure that the capacity is there. We're not trying to overload the system, if that's what your question, and we will not build it in a capacity that does so. You want to speak to that as well?
Yeah. Richard Vincent, 130 Short Road, Pinehurst, North Carolina. Yeah, Mr. Scott, just to piggyback on that, right now, if we were fully permitted today, we couldn't build houses. We don't have capacity. And as part of sort of getting that allotment for capacity, we have to move forward and get into the queue. So that when capacity does open up on the lines 18 months from now, whenever that is, 24 months from now, we're considered. In order to do that, we have to go through this part of the project and this phase right now.
Could this property be developed as R20 instead of being R8? Is it not developable at R20? which is what the UDO calls for?
Really, a lot of the development plans were driven by wetlands, the contours of the property. I recognize all of you. I came to a couple of meetings early on in the year for the project across the street. And originally, when we did a feasibility study on this property, we considered townhomes. And we saw we saw council's opinion on townhomes. It was, I think it was not favorable, but it was an opportunity for us to create more density on the property. And we took that information, we took it to heart, and we shifted, and we tried to reposition some of these plans to meander the development around the wetlands, around the floodplain. So we actually lowered the original density than what we wanted. From an economic perspective, R8 conditionals is the way this project for us needs to go to make work. And a lot of that was driven by, as you can see, the way we've sort of snaked the property around the floodplain and the wetlands.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yeah, so let me just ask a question. So one of the things that, because, we see with the way, again, as we were talking about before about the water, I agree, the water, today, there's nothing it does what nature does without any manipulation from man, right? It's just doing what it does. Runs down the field into the river. That's all it does. Obviously, man's developed methods to control that and push the water where they want it to go to, in many cases alleviating that. My question to be is, so that, like with this here, you got these holding ponds, but I mean, I don't know how close you are. Your appears here on this chart, you're not that far from the river to the west. I guess it's west, northwest. So is it, and is that right? That's to be the west, is that not correct?
That's correct.
Yep. And so the question would be is, I don't know, that you don't own that's into the wetlands over there. I didn't know if that's a possibility, if that's something you guys look at as, if there's a way to move it out of this section here. This is where our problem's at, right? Our problems is down in this area here. And so the question is, when you're doing stuff, if you do whatever you do, it's still gonna push water into this area here. That's not gonna alleviate this at all. Got to find a way of moving it beyond this area to get it past this area. But now when the river backs up, it don't matter where you're at, right? If the river's backing up, are we talking about 70 highway? When the river's backing up, the river backs up. And, when the Raleigh people decide to open the gates and let it flood us, there's nothing we can do about it. You just wait till it's over. I mean, it's the truth. Has nothing to do with our building, it has to do with Raleigh's building, right?
Yes, sir.
So, that is a factor. But I didn't know if you guys consider if you're looking at when you start doing that, if there's a way to, at least for natural flow, moving it beyond that valley down there, because that's where our problem's at. And anything that we continue to pump water into there's only so much that small creek can take. It's only so much, and that will cover the bridge on Buffalo Road, floods our greenway, things like that nature. Whereas the river's a lot bigger, has a bigger ditch, right? If there's some way to get it down that way, but it's wetlands over there, so I'm not sure what you can do.
Yeah, so I can answer that question. So the first thing, if we're lucky enough to get approved by the rezoning board, the first thing we'll have to do with the Department of Environmental Quality is we'll have to do what's called a wetlands delineation study. Now, there might be some misconceptions about how, and maybe I wasn't clear about the water. We can't just push more water onto the wetlands. Just like we can't push water onto another opposing person's property without their permission. That is illegal. You're not going to be able to do it. There are ways that we mitigate that water and get it into the proper channels, whether it's the pond, infiltration ponds. So as far as the infiltration basin, the water goes into the ground, then it moves naturally in the way to the areas where it's supposed to go. Or we do storm water. We're not just dumping water onto the wetlands to make that's not how the erosion and sedimentation plan will work, and it would never get approved. The Department of Environmental Quality is very, very specific on how you treat their wetlands. So there's actually more restrictions that we're going to have to go through about that water movement and where it goes than it would if it were not associated with any wetlands.
So you're better off building a bigger pond.
Yes, sir, and that's perfectly, that might happen. As to Mr. Weinsman's point, if you see, and again, this is completely hypothetical,
right.
But if you'll notice those 3 lots, the pond on the bottom left and those 3 lots attached to it, if that retention pond's not big enough and Department of Quality says it needs to be double the size, well, those 3 lots will go away, and the pond will become bigger in size. Department of Environmental Quality will make sure that to their standards, that water is managed and treated in a way that's safe for not only for residents, but also for the environment.
And then we have, as we've done with others that have retention ponds, one of the things that we require, we've been requesting that they do, is have some way of keeping that water moving, some type of, you know what I'm talking about, Stephen?
Aeration?
Yep.
Yeah, we
Something
don't
to
know if
keep-
these are going to be wet ponds, do we?
At this point, we do not know until we get ours.
So a wet pond would have aeration. We knew that across the street, that was going to be a wet pond. They stated to be a wet pond, and that was a mitigation issue to keep bugs down. This one, it's unclear what these are going to be. But it could be, if they're wet ponds, you could irrigate them.
But then, so the question is though, when would that be something that we would know and something that we have an input in? Is the input in it today, or is the input in it down the road? That's the
Well, you
question.
could make
The
a
question is, yeah, I
You
mean.
could make a condition, if the ponds are wet ponds,
Right.
then they should be
Right.
irrigated.
So I think we need to add that, yep.
Well, and one thing, again, not to disagree with you, just to caution you, Department of Environmental Quality is very specific on how they want their water moved. And again, I understand specific and preferences, but I'm very hesitant of establishing a condition that might not be able to approved by NCDEQ. I'll give you a similar example. If the condition is, oh, this has to be a wet pond, we go through our permitting process and Department of Environmental Quality says, well, you can't do a wet pond here, it's going to have to be an infiltration basin. Well, now we have a condition of development that we're not able to meet, not because we want to, it's because the environmental, we have two bodies that disagree. So as far as the type of pond, I would lend it to the expert, and again, not disrespectfully, but I would lend it
No,
to.
no, that's not what he's asking.
Oh, okay, I apologize.
His concern is if it is a wet pond, that it be aerated.
Right.
Oh,
That's simple enough.
if
I think
it,
DOT 's
If it's a
gonna-
wet-
I don't
if it
think,
doesn't, then that- yeah, we're not making you put one in.
I apologize, I
They're not going to
misunderstood.
care if you put a pump in there and spray water
I
up.
apologize.
Right.
No, 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 it just,
misunderstood the question.
we know it's something we want to make sure of,
Sure.
because you don't want to have a skeeter breeder or something
Yes,
else
sir.
in there,
Completely understand. Sorry, I misunderstood the question or statement.
Mayor, I would like, and Mr. Stewart, I'd ask you another question. Would you object if we, I'm back to the sewer, because it is an issue, that if we had a condition that you obtained a capacity for the total subdivision, even though you may build it out in phases? Would you object to that?
I'll be honest with you, gentlemen, as far as, do you want to take that one? As far as total to capacity?
I don't know if we control that. We would love that. We would love to have all the capacity at one time. I don't know if we get to make that determination as developer.
Can't we?
So Ted, can you address that, or can you come up and help?
Mr. Creedle, just for the record, I don't believe, based on the response, that they understand the capacity. My concern is that, for the build-out, if this was sold or something like that, that it would be present so it could be completed. That's my
Right,
read.
I think I understand where you're going. They can purchase if it's available, you can allocate and purchase the allocation for the entire. Where they might hesitate, and I wouldn't blame them, is what if economics drove a different model for phase two? Then how do you rebate that? But anyway, that's a question for another story. But the answer to the question is, it is possible to do that.
Yeah.
And then there may be also a sunset date you'd have to worry about.
Tonight, we're speaking on rezoning for phase one and phase two.
Right, for the whole
So
thing.
phase one and phase two is what's presented here tonight.
Yes, sir.
I'm not worried about future.
Yes, sir.
I mean, I'm worried about it, but I know where Councilman Scott's going with it, and you just mentioned it, right? But go ahead.
I just want to make clear, this is the rezoning.
Right.
They will be back with a preliminary plat, and some of those concerns certainly could be more applicable to the preliminary plat when things are more firmed up than at the zoning stage.
Yep.
And
Yeah,
we have a
and
pretty
Mayor-
detailed conditional zoning process, but a lot of decisions haven't been made yet.
Mayor, and I wasn't, let me make sure I'm clear, I wasn't thinking if they add something else, I'm talking about what's presented one, because I think he said that it could be up to 3 phases, but ideally maybe 2 phases. But do you understand, so you and I are on the same page that it would be the total, what's
Yeah.
presented?
Yeah.
right?
We would, what you're saying is you would like to approach the county does our sewer, right? Approach the county with allocation for the entire subdivision at one time. Is that what you're asking?
Yes.
Right. If they give it to you, great, right? That's what you said, that's what you want. If they don't, they don't, right? But it certainly could be, I guess, a condition that as long as the county allows it, the request be made for the entire subdivision.
Yes, and quite frankly,
I would think that's what you would want as a developer. You'd want to get it all.
what you want to do is you
first,
want to make sure you have it,
upfront.
so it's yours to
Right.
lose.
Yeah.
Versus, there's 25 other developments that come forward, and some of the
And it's in
capacity's
front of
gone,
you.
and we
Right.
don't want to fragment the project, but we're forced
Right.
to fragment the
And
project because there's no
what some of the,
capacity for the
some of the
remaining.
people here tonight have mentioned,
Yeah.
why are we approving things when other things aren't built out? Well, that's how it works, right? You have to get these things approved years in advance, right? To be able to have that capacity, because the county, it's finite, right? And so we are struggling as a county with our sewer capacity. We're building for it. Water capacity, we've done that, right? We've planned. And yes, are we planning for development? Absolutely, we're planning for development. But you guys, right, you have to do it in early stages, right, in order for it to happen, right? It's going to take you a year and a half or so to even begin
If we're lucky.
construction and so forth. So, but, I mean, I think Councilman Scott's question, I think you just answered it. You would ask for the sewer capacity from the county for the entire subdivision at the beginning.
And Mayor, if I may interject, and again, I have major concerns about your project. I'm going to be very honest. However, the reason I present that question to you, sir, is because if we don't manage the capacity at the developer level, the end user is going to pay the bill. And that capacity is about $11,000 per gallon. So I'm asking you to put the investment there, if it's approved, so that it don't come back later on our end user. That's my whole concern, the whole reason we're presenting that.
And that's part of our requirements now, right?
And to Mr. Weinsman's point, once we get a little further on the zoning permit, that's something that the county and town will have a final say on.
Yeah,
with-
I mean,
with permit.
there is no more free lunch.
Correct.
Right?
Yes,
You
sir.
guys are, I mean, developers are, you're buying purchasing your sewer allocations, right? So,
Mr. Mayor, a few questions, comments. The architectural standards that they've already listed in the conditions, are y'all, I'm assuming that y'all are still here, y'all are on board with these?
The ones presented in the conditions?
Yes, so far, yeah.
Yes.
Okay. My whole opinion on the growth in the town and these developments are being presented, conditional rezoning is the only way we can put our teeth into architectural standards. If they were to do a straight rezoning, there is nothing to stop them from building as cheap as houses as possible. So this is where I think we really need to spend a few minutes making sure, is this enough? I feel like what we did behind Walmart recently was a little bit more than this. So I don't know if I'm comfortable with the valley curbs, because you're not going to be able to manage the parking on grass. I mean, HOAs and code enforcement, I mean, it's all good on paper, but usually doesn't, in my opinion, doesn't come to fruition. With these, so that would be something I think we should consider. When it says all homes combination of two or more following materials, brick, stone, lap siding, shakes and board, or board and batten, by saying all that, that means no vinyl. Am I correct in reading that? Okay. So they can still do vinyl,
It can be vinyl and be all those.
or all of those?
Yeah, just because it says shake and board and batten, you can have board and batten vinyl. I mean,
Okay.
the look of it, and shake.
I mean, to be consistent, I wouldn't mind adding adding the condition with no vinyl, if council sees fit too.
So the reason, just for clarification, the reason we suggested these architectural standards is they were common to the area. It was matched the area in which the development was going.
Yeah. Okay. I'm not gonna argue that point, but,
Well, to his point, we just approved one at our last meeting with the recommendation of no vinyl.
Okay.
And it seemed to satisfy the council,
yeah.
right? Having the different architectural features and no vinyl. So, just as an FYI, that was something that was just recently passed.
I mean, these homes are gonna look nothing like anything in the area. But, you know, East River is not a good representation of what, try to tell every developer that, East River is not a good representation of what we want to see.
Well, and just to clarify, maybe I pulled as far as the real estate market, I have in a 3-mile radius, and out of the houses that meet it, 80% of those houses meet the architectural standards that we present. I'm not saying all of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, but.
Trying to think of something else. That's all I got for the moment. Anybody else has anything?
So just to reiterate something, so did you add, one of the conditions was, if wet ponds are used, they have to have the aeration?
That could be a condition the council asks.
Yeah.
And we asking for that?
Yeah, I've got them highlighted here, which ones you guys are discussing. We can review them all.
Okay, and then also, I heard that there was a request was no vinyl. We've done that before. And then the other one was, that we would prefer curb and gutters all the way around, not valley curves. Don't like valley curves. I think that's something they've been asked before to do, and we've turned them down. Have we accepted any valley curves, have we? Oh, well, that's the tougher.
Other than East River.
Yeah, maybe that's the reason why we don't accept them anywhere else. So the point is, we haven't, any of the new subdivisions in the last several years, we've not accepted any. They've been requested and been denied.
We've only allowed them in front of townhouse units because of the closeness between driveways.
I understand that. Yep, but not in houses, though. Yep. That's to prevent people riding up on the grass and everything else. To distinguish that. So that's what that's what I heard. And I just want to make sure you had those notes.
Oh, the berm, can you, I'm gonna make sure I got this berm straight. 3 foot with bushes on top or 3 foot with fencing I'm talking along Buffalo Road?
So as far as my understanding, and again, don't quote me on this, but my understanding is the fences is going to be on the back side of the properties, and then the berm will be behind it.
Will be behind it.
Yes.
So they'll have their own personal 6-foot fence, a space or whatever,
Correct.
and then a 3-foot berm
Correct.
to our landscaping
Correct.
standards.
So, I mean, again, I don't know, depending on the landscaping, the height will vary, but
So if the DOT comes in and widens that road later, it would, obviously the right-of-way would be affected. I don't know what the setback would allow it, but that would take the berm away if it was there.
You would certainly get a look at it at the preliminary plat. The plat would have to address all those issues. They would probably lose lots. They would have to adjust everything back because the zoning is calling for, if this gets approved tonight, we've got, 24-foot open space next to the right-of-way. As a staff, I would say, well, that just got moved over, so how are you going to deal with it? You lose lots because there are some minimum requirements that the council approved, and those that have to be adhered to, and the rest of it, the developer would have to adjust, just like stormwater. If the ponds get bigger, they have to adjust.
and we won't know that until NCDOT formally reviews it.
Stephen I'm asking you, you don't have an idea, but, so I'm assuming when DOT looks at these, design, as far as traffic concern, they have in their crystal ball somewhere what they're planning to do 10, 15, 20 years down the road, what they're looking at doing, even though they might not share it with other people. Because again, point is, if they were to come here and build houses here with fences and all, and then decide they need to widen the road, awful hard to move the houses. You just move the yards,
So-
and then there, you don't have any berm, you don't have anything.
The one thing that was suggested, and this was something that I was going to bring up at the next STI process, is that this corridor now becomes a concern for the town, and that we ask for funding to make improvements to it through the STI process. But at this point, this wasn't anticipated, we didn't ask for it. It probably wouldn't have scored well, but at this point, with all this development coming in here, it probably would score. So that is something that we do have in our control.
But how would that address the spacing?
The spacing between,
Okay, we can say the rear of the house
Oh.
and the road. If you don't have it there now, the
Right.
house is built, it'll be right.
well, yeah, I mean, DOT typically tries to work with what they have and make improvements with what they have. They try to minimize the impacts to adjacent properties because they got to buy that land. So obviously, through the planning process, if they had a plan, only if they have a plan for widening, can they ask for right-of-way and have it be dedicated. But at this point, they have to buy everything. So they're going to do their best to work with what they have.
And I can just, to Mr. Barber's point, just like the town of Smithfield and other municipalities, DOT has a future plan that they're mapping, and that's the first thing they look at. And they make alterations to it, and then make alterations to our plans based on their plan, very similar to the town of Smithfield. But DOT does have a future plan of what they see the roads and capacity for. And then they analyze it based on each individual project.
Which is subject to change based upon, because they don't know the housing stuff. They wouldn't know about the housing developments that Smithfield's doing until Smithfield decides to do it. And then that's going to impact their road. So if they didn't have that, they wouldn't know that to put that in their calculations. You see what I mean?
Sure.
I mean, I'm sure that there's roads in Johnson County that DOT did not realize were going to be cram-packed with people. And, talking about studies on the roads. You were talking earlier about the DOT. DOT does not necessarily have good traffic flow through the county. I mean, there are roads that are backed up. I mean, you try to get anywhere on 210, 42, those places, they're doing some work on some areas, but man, traffic is horrible. So the point is, just because DOT says this is what we want to do, does not necessarily mean that they're going to have good traffic flow. So, yes, sir.
I just want to point out, DOT has some plans. Like they've said they're going to widen Buffalo Road, but they don't actually have a plan for it yet.
Right.
They're anticipating a three-lane road. Somehow, because of the funding stream or how they did that deal with East River, they're able to get right-of-way. But for the most part, they got to live with the right-of-way they have. And so they don't have we got plans, it's all figured out. They are somewhat reactionary. Some projects, through this STI process, they can get a little bit ahead of some of the issues, but it's not a crystal ball. It is reactionary. We have some control, but not a lot of control. And DOT doesn't have a lot of control either because they're bound by their existing right-of-way and has to buy their way out of congestion. It's not easy. They will do a lot with turn lanes, lights, maybe roundabouts, super streets. Those are their tools.
So then, let me ask this question to you, maybe not trying to get off the subject, but then the question is then, should we not, as we know where we are, better than DOT knows where they are, should we not take somehow another consideration when we're doing planning for projects that we're doing, and we know these roads are going to need to be expanded, maybe not 5 years, 10 years down the road, but are going to have to be? Is there something that we should take into consideration when we're changing, when we're allowing designs to build some type of built-in buffer to enable that happening in the future, that we know is going to happen? Is that something we can put into our evaluation? Because if we know it's going to happen and then we don't provide for it, then DOT comes along and says, well, we can't do it because so-and-so. Now, we've not enabled our town to get rid of our congestion issues because we could have, but we chose not to, and throw it off on DOT and say, how come you guys ain't fixing the problem? Is that something we can do as Not today, but,
I'm not sure if I'm understanding, but I mean, I think we can ask for open space along our corridors. I guess I'm asking Bob too, but I think we can conditionalize that because that's, with a conditional zoning, because it's something that we see as a concern that what if DOT widens? We want to make sure we still have a buffer. I think that's reasonable. Question is how much?
Yeah.
I mean, it could be 30 years away till any widening comes because they got to buy the rest of the corridor.
Right. But you're saying it is a possibility if we want to do it in the future?
Yeah, and again, we can use that STI process, really look at it and say, these are the corridors we think are going to develop and start advocating for improvements like you've done with Wilson's Mills Road. It doesn't score well, but with the developments that are being discussed along that corridor, it very well could be. They've already got it scored or analyzed. It'll be a lot quicker process.
It's moved up the list,
Yeah,
moved up considerably on the list.
yeah. But I mean, that's what's going to happen. So I think the best thing is the STI process. The county's doing their transportation plan. If there's something you want me to communicate back to that, I'm on the stakeholder group for that transportation plan. That's kind of a wish list for DOT as well from the county level. Obviously, they don't control the roads, but they can lobby for it through their planning process. It helps them figure out what they want to ask for STI, essentially. I can bring up Buffalo Road as being one of the priority areas that hasn't been previously discussed. But again, that's another avenue for us.
Is the county doing something like that? Just say, because I know you go down and look at their subdivision they're building, it seems like they're building, their subdivision's going to be further off the road than the ones that we're building. I'm just saying, so I didn't know if they have a requirement for that, because it does appear that they're building their lots further off of the roads, which could enable them to expand those roads.
I can ask Braston what their process is, but I'm not sure.
Okay. That's just something I think, we need to start looking at, especially for some of these high-density roads that we know we have issues with.
Any other questions? I guess the question for the developer is it was mentioned about no vinyl. Is that, you guys, would you agree with that? I mean,
the other two, the valley curb, we got no issue with. The hard curb, we just personally like the look of a softer curb and kids riding bikes and being able to ramp up, and there's no cracking long term. It's a softer look. I understand the parking, people concerned about parking up on the curb, and you get rut marks on sort of the grassy right-of-way areas. We had requested that at planning board, and I believe they agreed and allowed it as a condition, but it's not, we're 50-50 on it. We just prefer that look. So we're fine there. The aeration on the contingency that should it be a wet pond, some form of aeration system to move water for bug mitigation, we're fine with that. The Hardy's really driven by the economics, by the surrounding homes, the surrounding home values. As we said, there's a lot we're going to find out on this project. We may end up having 175 lots at the end of the day. I mean, that's the reality. We have no idea. Based on what DEQ is going to require, all the other state agencies, all of that come into play. So we're not requesting a 4,000 square foot lot. We saw what the reaction was to a 4,200 square foot lot in January or February. We're not requesting townhomes. We're not going multifamily to max out density. We've tried to find a fair compromise that we felt was at least from our perspective, was a fair compromise. We do have sort of natural and environmental barriers that are driving the way this development looks. I do think if you want to call it the second phase, the lower section, obviously we will do what we have to do to get permitted to get out of the floodplain and the floodway area. But to me, those are attractive homes. Those have a nice view of the Neuse. It's a lower part of the property. There's a lot of green space. Those may command a higher value. But not knowing what we're going to end up with and knowing that we're going to most likely find more wetlands and the environmental constraints that we have, the Hardy would kill us on this home value. It would have to be something we'd have to completely halt and revisit everything. So I think there's some other things. I do think vinyl has become a dirty word, but there's lots of different kinds of vinyl. There's premium vinyl that looks very, very close to Hardy products or cementia siding products. siding always used to be wood siding, and now it's cementitious siding, and siding has its own definition. So I think there are other products that we could possibly look to work with planning staff. I know at the planning board level, we did concede some concessions out of the gate and volunteered them, and we were more than happy to do so in the spirits of a good working environment. So I would hope we've earned some goodwill with planning staff to know that the way we've gone around this this whole process, we're committed to do the right thing. But Hardy, to commit to that would be a major issue for us. I'd hope we can find some common ground in some other areas.
Well, but right now, the way it's, what the condition 16 is listed,
I can go to that recommended condition. I had suggested is that, could it be percent, is there going to be any stone or brick or have a requirement for a percent of
Yeah, I
those
mean,
materials or the premium vinyl as rather than just blank vinyl? What
what we're trying to do is, this is our only, like I mentioned a few minutes, there's only chance to kind of get the look that we're going for.
It's a negotiation.
And I get where y'all are coming from. Y'all are trying to maximize. I mean, I know what's going on, but we've just been, I've told, if you've been to these meetings, you might have heard us say this, we've been shown something in the past and then gotten a different product. If you go to Second Street across from our dog park, that's where we all point. We point to that and we point to East River. So, I mean, I would definitely say no vinyl on the front. Is that something y'all would consider that?
You mean like traditional?
No traditional plain vinyl. Well, I get it, but that covers that with combination of two or more.
Yeah, because the
That
vinyl
would
can be the board and batten look as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I guess, you said no traditional
No, yeah,
vinyl
yeah.
or no vinyl at all?
So no
Again,
the traditional is the lap siding.
Right.
Yeah.
That's lap siding.
Yeah. Really what we're talking about is more materials than style, if I understand correctly.
Sir?
More materials than style, because you can have different vinyl products, different styles of vinyl, or different styles of lap siding. The percentages is probably something where we'd lean more on, only because the more materials and the different textures and you're trying to tie them in on corners, it's,
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, can't have hodgepodge.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that could possibly handled on a side elevation with an additional window, or, that, instead of seeing,
Because my concern too is on the corner lots, blank walls on corner lots. So which are, street facing lots, big flat walls with a HVAC unit, unless you're.
Here's the picture. This met the.
I don't see that.
This met the Marin Woods standards
Uh-huh.
because it was just short of 30 feet, which would require a window.
Right,
One more foot, they would have had to put a window on that wall.
right.
So that's the standard we approved.
Well, I
It
mean,
sounded good on paper, but,
yeah, I learn something every time I do this, so. Yeah.
the house next to it has windows, which looks nice, but,
I mean,
so
what do you-
anyway, just an issue. I think whatever the developer could do to address these issues, whether it's a percentage of different materials or addressing the corner sides, a percentage of brick, percentage of something to make these homes look a little more substantial. Because again, this Marin Woods showed us this picture, and it has lots of nice brick and stone, and this is what's getting built, which still meets, there's some brick, but most of the homes don't have it. So
Right.
trying to educate the council and also the developer here on standards.
that's the very reason we're not showing you 20 pretty pictures.
Right, I get it. I mean,
That's
y'all
not-
learned the
That's
early-
not the intent, yeah.
Early on.
I mean, we don't like seeing that side either. So
Yeah.
did you say it was 30 feet?
Beyond 30 feet, they required a window or some other architectural feature, and of course, that was a, 29-foot-and-a-half wall or something.
Yeah, I mean,
It costs that much to take a window in there. I'm just telling
Yeah,
you.
but we doing it.
You may have to take a creative stab at that, but we could definitely work on that.
I mean,
And
you
think
could
we
put a
agree-
condition, you could put a generic condition to be revisited at the preliminary plat if they get that far, and review, give staff and the developer time to craft some details.
So a condition that the architectural would have to be approved
Yeah,
at preliminary plat.
prior to the preliminary plat. Addressing corner side yards and percentages of more premium materials. I think that would at least give us some leeway to work together and still put some teeth on it.
Yeah, I mean, that,
So
That could probably suffice.
are you guys just the developers? Would you be selling these lots to individual builders? Do you have a builder in mind already, or?
No, yes, yeah. It's really driven by
So-
sewer capacity.
Yeah, but right now, you're just the developer of the property,
If we
correct?
had sewer capacity today,
Yeah.
we would be much further along. We have to go through these hoops to get in the queue.
Yeah.
So that there's just parts of the process we don't know yet. And
Yeah,
that's
no,
why we
I
don't have the
understand, but-
elevations. We don't know when the capacity is going to come online. Could be 12 months, could be 2 years. That's the challenge we have.
But are you in the business of building?
It would, mostly development and horizontal.
Right, so
Yeah.
you
So
can't,
I'll
we're not
go-
speaking to the builder.
right, so
Right.
right now is when we got, right.
So here's your opportunity,
Yeah.
is all I'm saying, is now is your opportunity for conditions, right? Because whatever conditions are put into place and agreed upon, that builder will have to abide by them. Is that correct, Stephen?
Yeah.
Because right now, you're just developing the property.
That's
And you're
correct.
going to sell the lots off, right?
Yeah,
So-
it wouldn't be individually.
Right, but
It
it could
couldn't
be
be
a national
piecemeal.
builder
Yeah,
that
we
comes
would-
in and sweeps them all up.
Correct.
And they're gonna do it
And
as
you know.
29 and a half feet
Right,
as
yeah.
possible.
Nothing wrong, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, I'm just trying to,
Yeah.
I'm just
And
trying to
look,
make sure everybody understands this process. It is we're here negotiating, right? And now is your chance to negotiate, right?
I do think just with all due respect, the working with staff, that sounds like it's a conditional approval, but it's a conditional approval. And really what we do is we're kicking this down further down the road.
That's correct.
And it doesn't really get us any closer to a determination.
It's kind of what I'm saying, is now's your opportunity.
Yeah.
Instead
So
of
what- I mean-
saying staff do it later,
What- I mean,
now's your
y'all-
chance.
Y'all
right?
are I don't build houses. How can I avoid that side lot and?
Tell me you want windows in it regardless.
Yeah.
Yeah. And those are the things I'd like to agree to,
Right.
because the more specificity and clarity we have, it's going to help us, it's going to help you, because we would like to come back and do more business in the town of Smithfield at some point, and we don't want to be throwing Marin Woods back at our face 2 years from now and said, you all did this. And if we have detail that we can pass on to the next group and select the right group to do this development the right way, it makes it easier for us because we've given them the rules to follow. So-
And I do think I mean, for what it's worth, right? I mean, we're going to have growth, right? We're going to have growth, and it's our, yeah, exactly. And it's our chance to do it, and that's what we're here to do, right? No one wants to see, streets where we can't drive up and down and, congestion like crazy, but to think that we're not going to have growth in this town, it's just simply not, it's just not reasonable for anybody to think that, right? It's happening, it's going to happen, and we can't stop it, right? What we can do is hopefully work with the developers to try to come up with the very best product that we can, right? And so I do think where I was going with this is, I think it kind of speaks a bit of volume, I mean, a little bit to yourself as developers, that you did come to meetings, and listen, and you're not proposing townhomes or apartments or condominiums, which you could have, right? I think you heard the council say that we would much rather have single-family homes than that. So I do think that's a good positive to you guys to at least bring this type product to us. Just my thoughts, my opinion. Now, getting to exactly what we want, that's what we're trying to do now. So hopefully we can,
I mean, I hate to ask you how to suggest a condition upon yourself, but
Take a stab.
How would you suggest you avoid the middle picture there?
First of all, I hate seeing that. I think we could, 20 feet would be, right now it's 30, right? And you said they avoided that by having right at 30 feet. Everyone's going to surpass a 20-foot depth, so that would assure 20 feet would.
One window for every 20 feet,
Or 19 feet?
or no less than 1 or 2 windows per wall?
Right, get it.
Yeah, I think we could,
I mean, they're not going to not put it square, so they're going to have to.
Right, so I mean, it's just 1 or 2 windows per wall, or is it 1 window per wall? What's appropriate for windows or doors?
I mean, I think too. I mean, one would look awkward. I don't know how to phrase that condition though. I mean,
I mean, look at the house next, 2 doors down, there's 2 windows on that wall.
yeah. I mean, I think one would look weird. One would,
Well, I think you mentioned architectural feature, or chimney or something like that. I mean, that seems like that would be a reasonable request if we're going to negotiate that. I mean,
And see, that's just, I'm saying, if you put a chimney on one side of the building, you don't necessarily, it may not be a place to put a window.
Well, you more than likely are not going to have chimneys in this
Well,
type of house. So
But it
they
could
can
be a-
tell you
it
that
could be a
right
dormer.
now. So you're not, if they start putting chimneys in, we are pricing them out of this neighborhood.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm going to tell you right now, there's not going to be any chimneys on these homes. All right, I seriously doubt
I got
it. You might have a gas fire, you have one, but your house was built in,
But it was added to it after it wasn't built originally.
So, I have one, it's a custom-built home, but
yeah,
this
it's
is
really
not.
corner lots.
yeah. I think it's corner lots that are the issue, because
Yeah,
they're most
corner lots,
visible.
and then the frontage.
I mean,
Let's start with the corner lot. How can we?
could we say no less than 2 windows per wall on a corner lot?
Okay.
On the wall facing, how would you?
The street facing
Street,
wall.
yeah, the street facing wall on a corner lot.
Oh, yeah.
And in no event on any side will there be less than 1 window.
Okay.
And what was the last part?
One window minimum on any wall. So that stops the middle picture.
Okay.
Not even visible, it stops the middle picture from an interior lot, and it improves that middle picture with the double window.
All right. So now I guess let me get my
What about the,
terms correct. Lap siding is a fancy word for vinyl siding.
no, vinyl siding,
Vinyl is
all
vinyl.
those materials can be built in vinyl.
They could be vinyl. You could have vinyl lap siding.
So the question is a higher grade vinyl adequate? Just make sure we're getting premium? Or a percentage of other materials to go with vinyl? Brickstone, other? I guess,
Can I ask a question, Steve? From a builder's point of view, have you done houses where the front is concrete siding and the sides are vinyl and the back is vinyl?
Have I seen it done, or have I personally done it?
Well, have you seen it? What is your opinion of it?
Neither.
Could the hardy plank be on the front and the vinyls be on the other 3 sides and they match well enough or not?
I haven't seen it done. That doesn't mean it hadn't been done. I
You don't have an opinion?
no. But I think the point's taken. There's lots of different styles, and the products have changed over the years to the point where you can have the premium looking siding. My caution would be, what does premium mean? And again, the Marin Woods thing, it's sometimes the more language you add, the more confusion you can create. So
you're the expert on materials as a builder,
I mean,
right?
would it be a percent? I mean, how can we? I mean, a percentage. I mean, I could live with that, but I don't know what that. I don't know what it is. So I don't know what that would be if that's a. Other than.
if we could work through the windows and then work with staff on percentages, I would have to defer to some substantially more experienced colleagues on what the end result and the end cost of that and the end feasibility of that is on, I couldn't tell you the difference between 20% or 40% or 60%, what that means.
You almost got to look at the architecture you plan on building and go backwards.
I'd have to sit with far smarter people and the end builder and end user, and then they would have to tell us if the market could sustain it or if it makes the project no longer feasible.
Well, people are coming here. The other thing is, people, to the mayor's point, everybody's coming here. We can open the floodgates, or we can try to get this as nice as possible, and that's where we're trying to find that common ground of.
Yeah.
We don't want just put big squares in front in every field we got. So that's why really this architecture's really.
Yeah, I mean, one other thing, I mean, because Councilman Stevens, your concern seems to be on the architectural standards, which I don't disagree with. So one thing to consider is, so for what you see in these pictures, we kind of have the same conditions. It's a combination of any two.
Okay.
You could make a condition that the front has to have brick or stone, and then maybe a combination of the board and batten or whatever. But it has to have brick and or stone, right? That could be a condition where you don't end up with just if that's your concern. I'm not exactly sure that is your concern.
That is, yes.
But if you see those pictures that were presented by Marion Woods, they all had brick and stone.
I like that.
Right?
That's what I'm looking.
They all had brick and stone, and then we have houses that are the combination of the board and batten and the shake siding, which, I mean, I really don't think, it doesn't look that bad in my opinion, but that's not what was presented to us and that's not the product we thought we were going to get.
Right.
So if that's your concern, you could certainly make that as a condition, and that may be feasible instead of requiring no vinyl at all, right? I just throw that out. I don't know if that's an agreeable condition or not, or if that meets what you're trying to do.
I think that might actually be a good way to put it.
I'm just looking at what was presented to us.
21 looks good, but you get 22 and it's down here.
Mayor, since we're negotiating these things, I would like to ask that we look at negotiating the lot size to meet some closer to our standard. I'm not in favor of it. If we-
I guess for the architecture side of it first, I'd like to propose the condition of with a brick or stone, and then your vinyl on the front, premium vinyl on the front.
I think what you're trying to say is you're still going to require the combination of two materials on the front, but one of those has to be either brick
or stone.
Is that what I hear you're saying?
Yeah. So all homes shall have a combination of two or more of the following materials: brick, stone, lap siding, shake, board, batten. Front facade shall have brick and or stone, and then another one, and then whatever other siding. Does that sound right? Or front facade must have brick, stone, and then one more. Am I saying that rightly?
Either brick or stone.
Yeah.
And a combination of other materials.
Still a combination of two.
Combination of two.
But one of the two should be brick or stone accent. Does that?
I feel like it gives us some more.
Can you go back to the original picture?
Yes.
So I think if you see the picture, you'll see what we're saying.
Yeah.
Gives
it more.
See, all of those houses there have brick and or stone accents on the front, and a combination of two. Still vinyl, but it could be board and batten, could be shake, as well as, but that's what was presented, that's what we thought we were getting.
Yeah, that's what we thought.
You see, does that,
Those houses have a lot
Sounds
more
fair.
character than what they.
Yeah. In the spirit of working together, I think we can agree to that.
Okay, thank you.
what else? So, Councilman Scott, you had mentioned the lot sizes.
Yes, Mr. Winslow actually spoke of it before about the sight lines with the corner lot specifically. I mean, I don't want to dictate what their layout is, but if it's going to be considered, I would ask that we ask for the increased lot size.
For-
All lots or corner
Yeah, or
lots?
just corner, I mean, or.
Well, obviously,
I'm sorry.
it depends on their layout. You're going to have to give a percentage. I think you need to have an average. I mean, it's just not, I mean, in any plan, it's going to be a range.
But zoning deals with minimum lot size. They often get larger because of curves and other features in the landscape. But we always look at minimums or maximums from zoning. And so they're proposing a minimum 6,000 square foot lot. Some of their lots are larger. Yeah.
So I guess my point to, like I said earlier, we have R8 zoning, that's 8,000 square foot, and we're already at 6,000.
Well, right now it's R20A.
I understand that.
They're
but
asking for
asking to-
R8CZ, which is consistent with the comp plan.
That's correct, but there's negotiation with that.
That's right. And may I ask a question of the developer?
Absolutely.
Do you guys know the percentage of lots larger than 6,000 offhand? I don't have that number.
We can get that to you. I know you can't get it to
Yeah. It's just anecdotally, I can see a lot of lots are larger, but
A lot of any lot on a radius, corner lot, anything.
It's gonna be having more.
Bigger than 6,000.
Right.
That's right.
Yep. But the 6,000 meets the art.
it's an R6 standard, which we don't have a zoning district for. We chose not to have that, knowing conditional zoning was going to be that flexible.
Take care of it, yeah. Okay, gotcha. Now I understand what you meant by, okay, because I was like,
Do you have the ability to pull up, I think it's sheet 5, if you don't mind?
Yeah.
I'll leave it to who.
And you can actually, we don't have the mic, we usually have remote microphones. I don't see them here.
The ones that, if you look at the Holland,
5 or 6?
That would be a 6,000 square foot lot.
Larger, yeah.
What page is that?
That is number 5 on the presentation. So what he said, because he wasn't in the microphone, he said all the lots on curves are larger than 6,000. In some cases, they may be 8,000 or more. Corner lots also are bigger because they have to have the same front setback on both streets, which makes them larger. Here's an example of course, I can't read the numbers here, but you can see the smallest lots are 6,000. The other lots are larger than 6,000.
Let me have the mic pick this up. Lot 132 is shown as 8,721 square feet.
So we are getting,
Which lot is that?
Lot 132.
Okay, I'll find that.
And lot 147 is 8,200 square feet. Lot 145, 8,400 square feet. Lot 125, 7,600 square feet. So those are, corner lots are slightly bigger. The radius lots are 8 to 8,500 square feet. I'm not going to tell you that's 50% of the development, but I do think it's definitely in the teens and beyond. So.
I think in the last meeting we had, they had spoke about trying to help with some of the flooding or the water problem. I wouldn't say really flooding, but the water problem in Bradford Park closer to them. I know that we'll probably get larger ponds, but they had mentioned they would be willing to put something there in place to help drain that water there. Are you familiar with that?
I think in that discussion, it was they're willing to put some storm drains in the backyards to alleviate any water that might be in that
Yeah,
area.
I
Is that what you're
don't know.
talking about?
Yeah, I don't know the specifics of what was said.
They,
but I knew
yeah,
there
they were
was
talking about
something
storm
mentioned.
drains.
And that's been obviously a huge concern for,
Yeah,
already tonight, one of the concerns.
yeah.
But I know with the larger stormwater ponds, it probably helped, but I think they were trying to make a more conscious effort to turn the water down away from there. Is that?
Yeah, but that's very specific to that development and those lots. You know, it was the
Backed up.
spaces in the backyards between homes they were
Right.
concerned about. This is a whole nother development on
Won't know
another.
that until, yeah.
Yeah.
And we're fortunate that the way the property falls, it's falling away. There's a portion of that crowns towards the road, but the majority of it falls down the hill towards the news. And to answer your question, yes, we'll use best practices because we'll have to. And we'll get to that design phase, and this project won't move further beyond that until all those questions are addressed.
Any other questions, comments? Staff? If not, I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
I make a motion to close public hearing.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? What's the pleasure? You've heard the conditions and
Can Stephen read through
recommendations. I'm sorry?
Can Stephen read through the new added-on conditions that we're up to? I know we've had.
I kind of want to briefly just go, I won't read them, but I'm going to pull up the current conditions. Just everyone would get a chance. Make sure you're okay with these on the first 5. Good to move on?
That's a little better.
Okay. Number 15, that was an add-on from the planning board that the rear setback be increased to 25 feet along Holland Drive lots. Okay? We talked about the architectural standards, so these, I guess we'd have an amendment to these conditions addressing no less than 2 windows on corner lots that are street-facing, and no less than 1 window on any wall, and that all homes shall have combination of 2 or more of the following materials, and then one of the materials being brick or stone.
As like, they can't just put a brick in the window and call it a, right.
Yeah. Well, we have no percentage requirements, so.
I mean, yeah, is that, I mean, the way I read it, but
I mean, you could have a brick pillar and that's it.
yeah, I mean, is that,
I don't know, that's where the percentage of materials, a minimum of 10% or 5%, I guess what is the number? I don't know what you're comfortable with, but
what, I mean, what are y'all
the
comfortable with?
concern about 1 brick is,
I mean,
Shall not be 1 brick.
I mean, two's the same as 1. I mean,
Maybe there's a minimum height requirement. You can carry it along the front and have a consistent band, so it doesn't.
3 feet, not on the, 4 feet?
But in some cases, 3 feet may not look good.
Right,
And-
yeah,
and
that's what.
Some houses may look good with a 1 foot, and some may look good with 6 feet, you
But-
know.
The builders are trying to sell the house,
Yeah, true.
so they're not gonna build it with one brick. I mean, that would look stupid, and they're not gonna build it then something they can't sell. So I think there's a factor there too.
I understand the question, because you got burned on Marion Woods.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean,
Had you not been burned on Marion Woods,
And you're right, but I'll tell you right now, you put one brick in there and the price is right, it's sold. I'm just gonna tell you that, right? And builders will try to get the very least they can, right? So I'm not saying you guys would do that, right? Or, you know, but now is the time
Yeah.
to do what you want to do, right? Not looking back and saying, that's not what we wanted, you know, that's not what we had envisioned. But I don't know what that magical number is either.
I don't either, I mean, that's-
Because you're right. I mean, you can look at what you think is going to look right on a plan and say that it's got to be at least 3 feet, but then once your windows go in and your shutters and everything, that 3 feet doesn't become a reality, and it looks worse.
Right, yeah.
Right? So,
I mean, I want to leave some flexibility up to the
yeah.
architect, but I don't want to get loopholed. Is it 10%, is it 5%, is it 3 feet, are you willing to look at it and have a bit of a condition on a condition? I just don't want to get.
to be clear, we're talking about front facing, right?
Front facing.
Just the front.
facing.
Just the front.
Yeah, front facing.
Do you have those elevations again?
You do some eyeball calculations, right?
I'm sorry, I didn't intend for everyone to miss dinner.
Sorry. So, I mean, that house, that has brick on it. I don't know if it looks better with the brick or not.
Well, the one to the sideway's got brick on it too, if they count the foundation. I mean, you gotta be specific,
Yeah, exactly. Oops, sorry.
not to include the foundation.
I mean,
Yeah, I don't,
You know, another way to look at it is a percentage of the homes have at least X percentage of brick, so that not every home has it. But that, you know, some of the homes have 25% of the front facade be brick or 15%, but not every home. You know, so you can have some more variety. I mean, they're not putting brick on every home, and where they are using it, they're using it very sparingly.
Correct.
Whereas the pictures they presented was pretty robust and looks really nice,
Bricks.
you know?
you don't have the details for example, the top right corner. You don't have a percentage of the stone or brick variation on that elevation?
I'd say that's like 1/6
That's
or
less than 20%.
1/7,
10%-ish?
10%,
Yeah.
yeah.
I think we'd be amenable to that, but what that would force us to do, the way that condition is worded, is it's either or. So what you're doing is you're having stone, brick, stone, brick, stone, brick, and I think it alleviates sort of a attractive, sort of a little more modern farmhouse where you may want to pick up 2 or 3 brick rows on some stairs, and
Yeah.
it lends you to me, something that's a little more outdated, maybe 80s and 90s, and it doesn't allow you some sort of modern, light, airy feel. If it's worded minimum like that,
Yeah, yeah.
that would be the only concern. If it was additional materials, either brick, stone, or, I don't know what that other product, but it would create,
Or a hardy or a, I'm not,
but really what we're not going, whether it's board and batten or hardy, it's the look less on the material in that situation.
correct.
Because right now, if it's brick or stone and you're having a minimum threshold for every house in here, for the most part, they're gonna look very,
Same.
very similar, and I don't think that's the intent.
That's not my intent.
You're
Yeah.
looking for an intent of ensuring a minimum quality standard on the facade,
Yes,
and I think we could agree to that in principle, we're on the same page.
okay.
I don't, but if it's either or brick or, then I wouldn't want to agree to that, because I don't think you'd be happy with the product. I don't think anyone would be happy
Yeah,
with the
otherwise you'd
product.
end up with this. Every home would look like
Every
this.
home would be that.
Correct.
Yeah. I don't want that either.
Right.
I don't know what the solve is, but
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're just saying Class A's, with Class A building materials on the front, is that, or is that just in what is premium? I mean,
Right. And without some more specificity, staff wouldn't know what that is,
yeah.
without them presenting clearly what that is.
This is a planning board move.
So,
What is that?
is everything from now on handled at staff level, or does it have to come back to us? If, after tonight, if with this
Well, you'll
were
get
to
the
move
preliminary
forward?
plat, and you'll see much of the same presentation at preliminary plat with more detail and engineering behind it. At that point, it's all staff.
Mhm.
After that, it's all staff.
Yeah.
So,
you
I
could-
mean.
You could still do the combination,
We could leave it like it is.
yeah, and require, I mean, if that's what you wanted, if you did want to require the brick or stone and all, but could you require that the elevations be presented at preliminary plat for
Yeah.
approval? And then that's when we could see it, right?
Acceptable to you?
We would see the elevations at preliminary plat. And we could put a condition no more than, you know what I mean? But it could be less than that as well. You could say no more than, or
15%.
or a minimum, well, shoot, no. I want to say not more than, because that wouldn't work.
the hard part is, it would force us to go down the architectural road right now.
Which is kind of what we want.
And if we had capacity today, we'd be fully on board with that. It's really that one brick comment that,
Yeah, I just see it being.
You got to remember now, I mean, there's.
I know, it's not gonna be, I trust your word,
it's not,
You got to remember, it was R20, right? So now we're looking at a lot more product here.
Mayor, if y'all are, not to change the subject, if y'all are not done with that, but the planning board talked a lot about, and I'd like to revisit the corridor, Buffalo Road, and is that in the conditions, Mr. Winsman, about the setback for those lots? And you mentioned the berm and you mentioned the fence, but they weren't together with landscaping.
Yeah, they never provided a detail of how the berm, they're providing a berm, landscaping, and fence. They didn't, they verbally now said the fence is going to be behind the berm at the back of the lots. We didn't know that in the review. But there's, what I said, 24 feet from the right-of-way to the back of lots, or side of lots, backs and sides. So we've got a 24-foot buffer with a fence, berm, and landscaping.
Should we be more specific?
It's council's purview, what you want. I
to be
do ask
consistent.
for a section of the berm, because I know these questions come up. We didn't get one, so that's why it's a condition that we have a 3-foot berm. If you want that to be a 3-foot berm with landscaping and the fence being somewhere on the berm, I don't always like it at the tippy top, but
Well, I think
it-
that would be the understanding, but obviously we don't have that discussion, it ain't gonna happen.
Say with land.
Well, they've said it'll be at the back of the lots. Is that acceptable? The fence at the back of the lots with the berm in front with landscaping?
I think it kind of defeats the purpose.
Well, the fence keeps you from viewing people's stuff in the backyard. The the berm and the bushes in the front
Break up
somewhat
the fence.
cover up the fence, right?
Soften the fence.
It's more for aesthetics.
So it needs to be landscaped.
So you have landscape in front where the people see, riding down the road, the landscaping. The fence is to protect us from seeing their junk in the backyard. It's not more for landscaping, it's more for everybody else's aesthetics. And that's what you're proposing to do. That's what most people are doing, putting the fence behind it. That's what they did over at Franklin Homes, isn't it?
Number 3 should say a landscape berm.
And then you got a sidewalk in front of that, do you not, also?
Yes.
So you got a sidewalk, then you
Trail.
got landscape berm and a fence. All that between the houses that's facing Buffalo Road.
The planning board discussed the trail, but I don't see that here.
Well, they provided the trails.
Huh?
They provided the trails. The trails are on the plans. The only thing I added was a condition that the trail connect to the development to the north.
But specifically along Buffalo Road.
There's a trail on Buffalo Road in the plans.
So is that not sidewalk, then, having a
It's
trail plus
addressed.
sidewalk?
Yeah, that's been addressed through the,
Is that sidewalk, is that
It's a
on a
trail.
trail instead of a sidewalk?
it's a trail.
So no sidewalks?
In this case, the PED plan calls for a trail on that side of the road. So we've requested the trail rather than a sidewalk.
Okay, that's what I was trying to say.
Yeah.
There's a place of sidewalk, there's a trail.
Correct.
And a berm and a fence.
So there's a trail, berm, and a fence.
Yeah.
And
And
landscape.
landscape, yeah. Trail, landscape, berm, fence.
Mr. Stevens, I think if we did that either stone or brick on corner lots, it would still give us, I think it would achieve some of what you're looking for, but it wouldn't make it too monotonous to make everything look the same.
Yeah.
And then hopefully there's some trust between our groups that everything else, we'd avoid some of the Marin Woods issues, but it would still give whoever the builder was going to be some variation, so they had different styles, different facades, and
So you're saying, okay, so facade.
oh, sorry, 10%. Sorry,
Okay, so
10% on
10%.
corner lots. Either 10% of the front facade, no less than 10% of the front facade would be either brick or stone, and then a combination of the other materials. And then that would be the 10% condition would be on a corner lot condition. And that prevents, you could have that on a corner lot, then you could have sort of you could have 1 layer of brick, 2 layer of brick, foundation brick. You could still have 15% of brick on the next house, but it gave the builder the flexibility to change the variation and the style of the house.
Okay.
So it wasn't brick, stone, brick, stone, brick, stone.
Yeah, I get what you're saying, I think. So, corner lot, can you go to the picture? Steve?
What?
Marin Woods. 5 pictures there. Look. Yeah, or zoom out. So you're saying that corner under your plan would have 2 windows and the facade along the base?
Front facade, no less than 10% either brick or
Oh, front facade. Front facade, no less than 10%
either brick or stone.
brick or stone. And then the side, on a corner lot, you'd have, your front would be just as we discussed, and your side would be
With windows.
with windows?
Yeah, that if that's the condition you're going to make.
Okay. But not necessarily facade on the side?
Doesn't mean it won't be on there.
Yeah, well,
But they wouldn't be obligated to provide 10% on that side.
well, yeah. I mean, they're gonna do the minimum, I mean, is that, anybody else have an opinion on that?
I think it sounds good. You've narrowed it down.
Because it's a condition. Yeah.
Are we clear on that, Stephen?
Steve, that's,
Yeah.
I think that works for me.
Mayor, one other thing that Councilman Dunn mentioned it, I would like us to take a look and make sure we're clear on the buffer with the other neighborhood on Holland Drive. There was, the planning board mentioned the setback. Y'all increased it, I think, to 25 feet. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes.
That's the setback, not the landscaping.
There, in that area, there is a lot of natural. Could we ask that preserve the natural buffer? Or something needs to be put there to divide that? Sometimes we discuss.
You
the
mean, you
fence.
mean not go in, the 25 buffer between, at Holling Drive, if it's existing vegetation, not to go in there and just clear cut that and come back with new vegetation? Leave the existing.
If it's appropriate. I
Is
think
that
that's-
what you're saying?
Yeah, maybe trees
Yeah.
and such, because you cut the trees
Right, if you've
down.
got mature vegetation within the 25-foot buffer, leave that. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, there's some mature trees.
Yeah,
out
no,
there.
I mean, I agree with that. I don't think they would have an issue with that, but did y'all hear that? So on Holland Drive, if there's an existing buffer there of mature trees, instead of going in there and just clear cutting all of that, if it's within that 25-foot setback, leave the mature trees there.
So what I'm hearing is don't go in and clear cut it and put our own trees up, just leave the trees that are currently existing as the landscaping?
Well, as part of it, yeah.
As much as
Yeah,
possible.
As much as possible, right.
You need to add additional,
Yeah.
then you would, to get your buffer.
Yeah, good, Stephen, I think you're.
In
maybe-
most of the 25 feet that the planning board is concerned about, there's no trees.
There are no trees anyway. It's
But there
farm
are big
physical.
trees right on the property line and probably within the first 5 feet that have grown naturally along a fence line or whatever's there. So, I mean, I think asking that existing trees be part of that 10-foot buffer, you know, be left in place as part of that 10-foot buffer, I think that's what I'm hearing.
Yeah, I think that's what the planning board,
Mhm.
from reading their notes.
I mean, any issues with that? I mean,
The only issue I see is fencing, if the tree is in a place to where someone wants to fence their lot off, and they're not able to then fence their lot because of the tree, it would be the issue.
If you've got a 10-foot landscape buffer that you're proposing, I would assume that the HOA is protecting that anyway from being cut. I mean, if it's required trees, something that's being required as part of this approval, I would think the fencing would fall short of it. Like where I live, I've got a protected berm along the highway, but it's on people's private property.
Sure.
It's a required landscape berm, part of the approval. That's protected. People are putting their fences up to the edge of that berm, not up and over the berm, because it's part of the approved landscaping. So I would expect the same
yeah,
here.
like neighborhood I live in has a landscape buffer. I can't touch it,
Yeah.
right? I can't put my fence there or anything. It's, you know, and I lose 20 feet of my property, but,
Yeah, I think that would be agreeable.
okay. Does that satisfy that?
So a 10-foot existing vegetation buffer.
If it's,
25 feet, that's what it says though.
I don't think we need a condition because staff is going to enforce that.
Okay.
I mean, if it's required landscaping, the development is required to maintain that, whether it's on the private property or not. You're going to have a landscape easement.
so you see where here's what we're faced with, is we've had subdivisions very similar to this that are buttoned up to farmland, people's existing farmland, and they live there, right? And then the subdivisions go in and clear all of the existing trees that have been there for hundreds of years, and then come back with 3 feet shrubs that's going to take another 30 years to grow. In our opinion, it would be better to leave that vegetation there as much as possible. I mean, you may want to go in and clean up some or whatever, take out any dead trees, but leave as much of the existing trees in that buffer in between the existing neighborhoods as possible, right? Because it's already protected, right?
Sure.
If you go in and clear cut it, then those existing neighbors are looking right over the top of a 3-foot shrub that you just planted that's going to take 20 years to
Sure,
grow back
understood.
up. That's what they're asking, you know, so we're feasible.
Yeah, I think,
All right, any other questions, comments? All right. Okay, did I close the public hearing? Public hearing is closed, sir. All right. Yeah, so we closed the public, so we closed the public hearing. Do I have a motion from council?
I make a motion, we accept move forward the approval with all the different conditions.
Which I'll review.
Huh?
I'll go through them right now if you want.
If you would, please, do it
Yes.
one more time.
So in addition to the ones on the staff report, that the developer obtain sewer capacity for the entire development if the county allows. That was one I heard. Confirm that that's what you want to hear. That Any wet ponds be aerated. That standard curbs be used, not valley curbs. And we just talked about the architectural ones. Do I have to go through that again? Okay. Yeah, that's what I have. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, well, 3 conditions plus amending the architectural condition that's already in the staff report. 3 new conditions plus an amendment.
So again, I move to approve zoning map amendment CZ 24-03 with the 20 conditions now? 20 conditions, I think you said?
20 conditions.
The 20 conditions of approval, finding the rezoning consistent with the Town of Smithfield Comprehensive Growth Plan, Management Plan, and other adopted plans, and that amendment is reasonable and in the public interest.
I would say also an amended condition number 16. I want to make sure that.
With that amended condition 16.
I'm sorry, what was your question? Did you have it?
No, I just made a motion.
I know, but I thought you asked a question.
No, well, he said 16. He said 16 also was modified, so we make sure we included the modification of 16 in there.
Yeah. Okay. All right, so I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Mayor, I have a question. Does that include the berm, trail, fence, landscaping?
I believe that's already on the plans.
Okay, well, believing and having it's two different things. so.
Exactly. Yeah.
I don't think a condition is necessary.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Do I have a second on the motion to approve?
I'll second.
I'll second.
All right. I have a motion and a second. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
1, 2, 3, 4. 4 no. Okay. 3 does not pass. All right. All right. Motion does not pass. Okay. 4 to 3. 4 to 3. Okay. Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate them. Lots of good discussion here. All right. All right, we will now move on to our next public hearing. It's Unified Development Ordinance Amendment, Driveway Ordinance Amendment ZA-24-01. Planning staff are requesting an amendment to the Unified Development Ordinance, Article 10, Section 10.6, to update the driveway standards. This time I'll entertain a motion to open the public hearing.
So moved, Mayor.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Stephen, turn it over to you, sir.
Sure. So this request for an update to the driveway standards was previously part of a larger text amendment, the performance standards, Article 10, that has been tabled by council. Planning board has reviewed this now twice because it's been, well, 3 times. It's been before them a couple times, then tabled. Now this was brought to them again. And at the direction of the town manager, staff was encouraged to bring it forward today to be considered for you outside of the full Article 10 amendment. The ordinance has not changed since the planning board's previous review, except for the driveway standards in the R20A zoning district. This ordinance would require all driveways to be paved, basically, again, this is zoning, so it wouldn't deal with existing. This is all new driveways, because it's zoning. All new driveways would be required to be paved with either asphalt or concrete, or an alternative paving material such as concrete pavers, brick, or similar material, not gravel. In the R20A, driveways exceeding 50 feet in length may pave the remainder of the driveway beyond the 50 feet with gravel or some other load-bearing material. So basically, the first 50 feet would have to be paved, and beyond that, it could be something else. Driveway paving cannot exceed 50% of the front yard area, so that we don't end up with parking lots in front yards. The driveway aprons must conform to the town standard detail, which is already a requirement, but just letting you know. And then requires zoning permit for all driveways. So the zoning text amendment as proposed is consistent with the town of Smithfield's comprehensive growth plan and other plans, and we believe it's reasonable in the public interest. Planning staff recommended approval of the zoning text amendment. But they wanted to exempt the ETJ from these requirements. And zoning doesn't work that way. Zoning deals with zoning districts, and we have R20A in town and out of town. And if the council really wanted to restrict it to just the town and not the ETJ, you'd have to put it in the administrative code, not the zoning code. But this is an amendment to the zoning code that we're proposing, the UDO. And again, the ETJ, the purpose of the ETJ is essentially to get the lands that are likely to come into the town to be conforming with what's existing in the town. So as we grow, we'll be growing into areas that already are conforming to our codes instead of being, much different. So those are the issues that kind of were raised at the planning board. Their recommendations that does not include the ETJ. So it's the staff's recommendation, and if the council wishes it to only be for the town and not the ETJ, then we need to come back with a different ordinance.
Mayor, on this topic, I agree with the planning board, and that's a reasonable request. I would move that we ask staff to come back with that correcting on text amendment. That's a motion.
So, well, this is a public hearing, right, so I understand.
Well, I can let the motion stand, but it's obviously for discussion.
Yeah, but I need to get through the public hearing on it. So, Stephen, if you'll proceed.
Oh, well, that's pretty much it. I mean, staff's recommending approval. The planning board wants to exempt the ordinance from the ETJ, which is a different ordinance, which means we'd have to come back with something that's in the administrative code, not in the zoning code, because zoning addresses districts which are in both ETJ and in town.
Okay.
So it's a very different approach. And if that's the approach the council wishes, we would recommend that this be tabled to another meeting so that we can come back with an appropriate ordinance.
So, Mr. Mayor, can I ask a question?
Sure.
So the question is, the whole objective, again, Smithfield's a growing town. Our objective is that the ETJ, that we continue to grow through our ETJ. That's our objective.
Right.
So I'm not sure why we would not enforce the rules for our ETJ that we're going to enforce for our town, since we're anticipating ETJ being more and more part of our town. And then if we didn't do that, then we're going to have non-conformance in some of the driveways that may get built during this time period if we don't comply. So I think it'd be more beneficial to go ahead and fix the problem now than wait down the road when they become part of the town. Now we got driveways with this one and driveway with that code that are different because we didn't take care of business when we could have. So that's just my thoughts.
And unfortunately, I had meant to include some photos of some of the recent driveways. We have some right on South Street in downtown that, they look terrible because it's gravel. There's nice improved driveways all around, and the bare minimum gets put in, over on the other side of the tracks. There's a lot of new houses going in with really substandard driveways that, that the edges are undefined and the weeds are growing up, and so that's really where this has come from.
Do you have any pictures of this problem in the ETJ? Because I don't think his comment was different from ETJ versus the thing. My statement on that is simply that the people that are in our ETJ, they have no voting authority of this board. And if they want to build a house with a day's market on their property, adding the expense of a paved driveway probably puts them out of the option of being able to build their house. Now, I understand the potential for future growth, but most of those driveways are not paved in the ETJ. I mean, what does it cost to put in a concrete driveway or an asphalt driveway of at least 50 feet? How much? I would say
15 to 18, probably.
that's my whole concern is I just think it's overreach.
How are you legally going to separate this?
How would, I'd have to go back in the administrative code where it only applies to the town.
I don't see grounds in the administrative code to do zoning.
I'm not sure.
How you do that? I'm just concerned about that.
And the other alternative would be to exempt the R20A altogether. I mean, Michael Scott and I had this conversation. I know we had the conversation with the planning board early on, and they weren't really in favor of R20A lots having these improvements. Again, we do have R20A in town, and we had the discussion a couple weeks ago. There's quite a bit of R20A in town. Most of the development's going to be in the urban zoning districts. Most of the issues are going to be in the urban zoning districts. So, I mean, I think we could exempt the R20A from these standards. That would be one approach.
But then you're not addressing your concern for in town.
Mostly we are, but not completely.
I guess my question going to be is, first of all, I understand Councilman Scott's view, but the problem is then that would be true of all of our standards we put upon people in the ETJ. We control what they do without them saying anything anyway, because they have to abide by our code. I mean, that's valid in anything. But I also understand his concern. Is there a way that do we have a code for driveways out into our ETJs or wherever that would be? I want to make sure we have decent driveways, okay? We need to have the code that meets that in our ETJ, so if they come into town, they are built with, whether they're built with concrete, whatever, $18,000, I understand that may be too much to ask. But is there a way that we can control that through some administrative coding or whatever, so that we do ensure that these driveways and all that are being built do meet the standards that we need to have, even if they're not the same that would be in town? You understand what I mean? You see my point? I'd make sure that they're good driveways. They don't just get DOT to let them put a drainage pipe out there and they put dirt over top of it. What you see in many cases in the county. You know, they put a drainage ditch and cover it up with dirt.
I don't think we
And people
have,
drive over it enough to smooth that out.
I don't think there's anything currently.
Will you pass that to the clerk, please?
So that was my question. I mean, is there something, though, that we can do as we're looking at this? Is there something we can do to ensure that we have some type of standards for those other driveways? Again, I understand the deal that we don't want to make them build concrete driveways necessarily in the county, because it would be very tremendous amount of expense. They just want to put a mobile home out there. I mean, it's unfortunate, right? I mean, and therefore they want to put a concrete driveway.
Perhaps the amendment would be that in the R20A, the first 50 feet of the driveway needs to be gravel or better. Gravel or better supportive of vehicle traffic.
I don't like the idea of splitting, having half our rules apply to half, and then ETJ being something different. I feel like we're opening up ourselves up. Why not do that for all of them? I mean, I get the argument of the ETJ for and against it or whatever, but I think having an apron off I think Brogdon Road, there's a lot of homes in ETJ that it's gravel straight to the road, and it's just, to me, that's just dangerous for motorcycles.
We now have,
As long as it's an apron.
we do have an apron standard.
So there is an apron standard, okay. That answers half my question. But I think we need to get ahead of this one way or the other.
I asked Stephen to bring this up and to research this, because I'm driving around town and I'm looking at infill houses, brand-new houses with gravel driveways I just don't believe that's what the council wants.
No, no.
You're exactly right.
But, and what I'm hearing our town attorney say is that you can't split the baby on this.
Yeah.
It's got to be the same for whatever zoning district you make it for, has to be the same in the ETJ as well as the town. And you
So we don't have
can't
a
use,
choice.
and he's saying you can't use the administrative code, and if I'm misquoting you, you tell me so.
You have to find a police power justification for it. I'm just off the cuff. I find it hard to believe. I can see it sometimes aprons because you can't turn on the driveway without getting in the ditch.
I understand.
If you don't have one, but I'm concerned that it could be challenged.
So what I'm hearing is we can't not include the ETJ in our decision. It has to be one or nothing.
But you can amend the standards in, let's say, the R20A, which is mostly in the ETJ. What is an appropriate, splitting the difference for that? Is it a 30-foot driveway standard? Is it just the concrete apron? Is it, concrete apron and gravel at least so many feet into the property to the facade of the home? Because some of these are farm properties. You don't want to have a driveway requirement for the whole thing.
Yeah, I mean, that's,
But maybe it's a residential property, concrete aprons and
he would get to most homes, would get past homes.
and then gravel to the facade of the house.
That would change what you got.
Yes.
And what you're saying there is that the concrete would really be better and look better if it extended from the street, not from the house, and gravel.
That's how it's written now, is that the first, up to the first 50 feet would have to be a better than gravel condition. Anything beyond could be whatever. But I'm hearing that that's more than the council may want.
Do you want to cut the length of concrete driveway? in certain cases?
Well, most homes in town are, infill homes will be, 30-foot setback?
Yeah, most are 8, are 6, are 10, for the most part.
So if we did, and somebody who builds is most likely just going to, if we did, say, 30 feet minimum, they're most likely just going to extend it anyway. It makes sense to have gravel at your parking.
Again, this is only dealing with new houses, not existing.
Right.
Right. But I hate to, if we say it as 50 foot, then the person who has a lot in the ETJ, who they may build 1,000 feet in the back, they only have to build it only has to be concrete or asphalt for 50 feet, correct?
Correct.
And that's what we're proposing.
And this, just so you know, the setback on major corridors is 50 feet. Even in an urban district, if you're on Brightleaf Boulevard, you got to be set back further than 30 feet, just because it's an urban corridor. So that's where the 50-foot comes from.
So your recommendation up there, the bottom part's not valid?
No, the bottom part, I guess Bob is saying, is not something we can do.
So if we approve it as, I'll make sure I got it straight in my head. If we approve it as you're suggesting, somebody in ETJ who builds 300 feet off the road does not have to legally run concrete or asphalt the whole way to their home.
50 feet.
Just 50 feet.
Mayor, since the council has stated that my motion is not valid, I will revoke my motion, please, to the clerk. Since council, the attorney advised it's not feasible.
Okay. All right, any other questions or comments for staff?
Can you go through I'll make sure I understand that. I'm sorry, but just can you run through that one more time?
This?
Yes, please, one more time.
So all driveways have to be paved with asphalt or concrete or alternative paving materials such as bricks or concrete pavers or similar, but not gravel.
Bob said we can't do.
In the R20A, driveways exceeding 50 foot in length may pave the remainder of the driveway to the public right-of-way with gravel or similar load-bearing material. That's probably summarized kind of backwards, because the first 50 feet would be paved, beyond that can be other material. Paving cannot exceed 50% of the front yard, and of course, we already have a driveway standard, and we'd require zoning permits for driveways to make sure this gets addressed.
So we gotta pay, that means even the R20A driveways will have to be paved up to 50 feet.
Yeah.
Out there in the country, probably put them all in.
Any other comments or questions for staff? If not, is there anyone in the audience wishing to speak on this matter? If so, please come forward.
I'm Mark Lane. I'm a resident of the ETJ. I just want to understand what I'm hearing, that there will have to be, new construction will have to be paved.
From the road up to the first 50 feet or less.
See, I mean, and I understand what Bob says, but the ETJ is it's a different section, and it's all rule, and I don't get it. But now, let me give you a scenario. If a person is in ETJ now that has a gravel driveway, they have to come and get a building permit for a barn. Is that going to come back and set off that they're going to have to pave the driveway?
Only if it requires a new driveway. If it's got an existing driveway,
It's not going to be a situation like we had with the car dealers,
what was the situation with the car dealers?
where we had to, like the parking of the cars.
No, there was already a striping requirement that they just didn't want to do. That wasn't new. That was something that was in the code that they were objecting to.
But it wasn't in the code when they built.
It may have been, it may not have been enforced. It certainly had been there a long time.
I think what he's asking is that because of the percentage of their remodel or whatever triggered.
Yeah,
It triggered,
did
and I
trigger,
think that's
but-
what Mark's asking is,
Yeah, but
is there going to be a certain amount, if someone wants to remodel their house?
Yeah, if there's already a driveway, it's only something that's going to trigger a driveway. Any new driveway would require to meet this standard. If you're not proposing a new driveway, you wouldn't have to do this. But if you're asking for a new driveway to your barn that doesn't already exist, then yes.
I think that's,
that, but I'm
yeah, I think that's
concerned.
what he's asking though. What if I've got a 2,500 square foot house and I want to remodel and add another 500 square feet? Is that going to trigger putting in a new driveway when there's already an existing driveway?
No, because you have a driveway, unless you're proposing a new driveway somewhere else.
Not proposing a
Yeah.
new driveway. I've got a gravel driveway to my 2,500 square foot house. I want to add 500 square feet
No,
onto
because-
it. Or, it's 2,500 square feet. I want to add on 3,000 square feet.
Because the
Just make
house-
the example where
house
it's
construction-
more than what my existing house is. Is it going to trigger
It
the
won't.
standard?
It
Okay,
won't.
I think that's his concern.
Yeah.
The only
Rightful
time
concern, right?
time it would- the
We
only
say it's
time
not
it
for new
would-
construction, but does a percentage, are you going to say, well, this is really new condition, you're building 3,000 square feet onto a 2,500 square feet, that's new construction, and it's going to
No, it
require
has
a
to do with
driveway.
whether a driveway exists or not.
Okay.
So as soon as you are putting in a new driveway, it has to
But if
meet
the
that
driveway
standard.
had to be moved, then that would trigger it.
Yes.
But only if someone wants to build a new home.
Well, a new home would trigger a driveway
I'm saying.
because there is no driveway.
Okay, that's what I'm saying.
As soon as you
That would
ask-
be- That would trigger that.
Yeah, but if you have a driveway, it doesn't have any bearing.
And you're not requesting to put another one in, it's fine. They're grandfathered into that, I guess.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So if you have an empty cow pasture and you want to put in a driveway, You got to put in a driveway with 50 feet of paved driveway because it's a driveway. Any driveway, you're going to require that to happen. You can't just put a pipe in the ditch and cover it up with gravel. You're going to have to pave it and meet the NRETJ, meet the requirement. Is that correct?
If it's a new
It doesn't-
driveway.
It's a new driveway. If you can
Yeah.
put in a driveway, it don't matter what purpose it's for.
Even if it's not going to a dwelling?
Yes, because it's a new driveway.
Any new driveway,
Most cow pastures have a driveway.
already. But if you put a new one in, you got to pave it.
Because it's a driveway standard.
That's kind of tough, though.
It's not a new house standard. It's a driveway standard, but new houses trigger a driveway because you need to park your car.
Exactly.
So I think maybe,
Well, if you
I'm wondering if
if
that
you
50
get a
feet too
driveway
much.
just to houses, I mean, the houses
Said
is
we
a
already
separate
have an
standard.
apron standard.
Is that going to be
That would address the
administratively
concern.
difficult?
That's what Sloan said.
Yeah.
Was talking about.
You could probably put an exception in the code.
If y'all are concerned about that, like,
You just put exception to house.
Travis was saying, I mean,
To a dwelling?
you could make it extend to a dwelling, you know what I mean, for everybody. And 50 feet is about enough space that, and this is a problem.
Could call it residential driveways.
Yeah, it's enough space for you to stack two sets of cars or pick up in a car, you know, back to back. So just conceptually, if you've got a single car garage, which nobody uses for cars, they use it for junk, and you have the driveway that extends up to it, to get 4 cars in that driveway, you need 50 feet, that conceptually. Which a lot of these townhomes, the reason we have parking problems is a lot of these townhomes have got less than 50 feet, and they can't get all 3 cars on their driveway, okay?
So is it okay to add only to a residential dwelling
I think we just change it residential driveways.
to prevent from the, because I don't like having to, I would hate to have to go tell somebody to put a driveway into nowhere.
Yeah, you can put a driveway into a horse corral or something.
Yep, that's
Right.
right. That's right.
Yep.
That makes sense.
Makes sense.
So where it says 10.6.1.1, it says driveways shall be, we say residential driveways.
Not the DOT has to approve these anyway.
Does that mean commercial don't have to pay?
All these would just say residential.
Yeah. Good point. Does that mean residentials don't have to pave them? Commercials don't have to pave them? See, so you can't just say residential.
Residential and commercial?
Not agriculture. Well, what about, what about that?
Yeah.
Yeah, agriculture business?
Residential, commercial, and industrial.
Why don't you put not agriculture?
Exempt, I
non-ag-
specifically, can you specifically exempt agriculture use?
Non-agricultural. Thank you, Bob.
There you go.
We'd insert that in front of the driveway requirement.
Doesn't DOT require you to, do you have to go through DOT anyway? Put in a driveway? Because anytime you clog up the drain, I mean, you put anything in the ditch, don't they have to come in and measure and do all the things anyway?
Yeah, I think they allow gravel.
But I'm saying is, doesn't DOT have to be involved in that
Yes,
process?
on
So
a-
they're going to ensure that the driveway is, no matter what you do, they're going to make sure the driveway is secure, or they're going to be there when you're putting it in. Are they not?
On their roads, in their right-of-way, but not into the lot.
Right, that's right. But on the ditch, I'm saying the driveway itself,
That's their
they're going to
right-of-way.
ensure
Yeah.
that the ditch, that the driveway, they're going to be the ones ensuring it
Yeah.
there. Usually with their engineers and everything else.
Yeah, I'm not sure what their standard is.
I've seen people in the country put in ditches and they don't do it without DOT doing it.
Mm-hmm.
DOT comes in and does it. You tell them you want to and they'll put it, but you don't do it. Because they control the ditches too.
Yeah.
ETJ being the county, do the same thing, they can make you. I'm good with that.
That makes sense to have
All right.
something.
Any other further discussion?
Mayor, saying there's none, I'll move we close the public hearing.
Okay. Motion to close and a second. Councilman Wood to close. All in favor? Any opposed? Have a motion?
I make a motion to approve it with the modifications that we had.
Okay.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor? Any opposed?
No.
Motion carries.
Yeah, I'll make that change and have it for your signature as soon as I can.
Okay. All right. Thank you, sir. This next one. Watershed. I guess we've already advertised it. We need
Got the shortest agenda in a longest meeting.
Yeah, if you can open the public hearing and close it at least.
Okay. We'll move on now to our next public hearing, rezoning request, Watershed Overlay District, RZ-24-05. Planning staff is requesting to update the zoning map to reflect watershed overlay districts consistent with those mapped by North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality. At this time, I'll entertain a motion to open the public hearing.
Make a motion to open public hearing.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Stephen?
All right. According to NC statutes, the town's watershed map cannot be less restrictive than the state's. The NC Department of Environmental Quality oversees water supply watershed program and has mapped watersheds throughout the state. In a recent review, it was discovered that the town's boundaries are different than that mapped by the DEQ. This is what we have currently. We have the protected area and the critical area represented by the different hash patterns on our zoning map. And just notice, the critical area basically is Durwood Stevenson South. Also take note that the industrial district is not included in the protected area. Those are some of the biggest changes. So in a comparison, the pink areas are areas that will be removed from our current boundaries. The green areas will be added. And you can see how the critical area will be getting smaller, somewhat smaller. And you can see also that that industrial district that I mentioned will be partially added into the protected area. That includes Gates Concrete, the property behind which is newly developing, the new warehouse that is currently under construction. We did inform them that they were within the boundary, even though it wasn't mapped as such. So it is affecting some current development. So again, these map districts are on the zoning map. This amendment will add properties to the overlay and remove properties from the overlay. We do have an ability to petition the state to differ from their standards if we can prove that the areas do not flow to that watershed. Bill did look at that. The town engineer reviewed it and recommends adopting the DEQ's map because he couldn't prove that water wasn't going to the watershed. So this is how it's going to be changed. The current boundaries are on the left. The new proposed are shown on the right, and that'll be mapped on our zoning map. Again, this is what we'll end up with a protected and critical area. You can see the areas in their totality. And so staff finds it consistent. And there's a recommended motion and for the council's consideration.
Mr. Winsman, the changes, I understand it expanded. What would cause it to shrink? For example, the pink areas.
Probably, I don't really know the history of how it got to what we have now. Certainly the DEQ's got better data, so they probably remap it with better data over time. It seemed like somehow it was very purposeful how our map went around the industrial district instead of looking at the watershed boundary. It seemed very deliberate. I don't know how that happened. So I can't answer that. I mean,
Well, and what, I don't know, what does the watershed boundary dictate?
it's primarily has to do with stormwater controls. There's higher degree of stormwater controls and some land use controls within those overlays. For Smithfield's purposes, it's mostly just stormwater controls. It's a higher level of stormwater control, particularly in the critical area.
So specifically speaking of the project we heard tonight, south of Holland Drive, part of that on page 5 becomes less restricted, but the other part is becoming critical. Is that correct? If you look at the map on page 5.
Yeah, I got to go back and look at the map. Yeah, I think with this revision,
Page 5, Mr. Winsman.
5? Okay.
Pink area south of Holland Drive.
Yeah, I think much of the proposal tonight would actually come out of the critical area based on this.
But-
Probably all the lots would fall outside of the critical area.
That's interesting.
That's interesting.
I mean, it's about protecting the watershed,
Okay,
so.
I trust you.
Now, so then, since you got that map up there, and I'm of interest because my house falls in that green area, the question is, that's being added because it was just not on the map before, on our map, is that what it is?
The pink
No,
color?
the green.
The
area
green is
there.
being added.
Huh?
The green is being
So
added.
it just wasn't there, it was always, should have been there, just was not added, we just didn't have it on our map.
Right. And
So all we're doing is correcting our map here
Yeah.
by putting in those green areas or those areas that was already there. And the red one, the pink ones are ones that was already removed that we just didn't fix. So really all we're doing is fixing the map. Is that correct?
that is correct, and it's really going to affect new development. It's not going to affect people who already live there because it's already impacted. They may be in what would be considered in violation of those rules if they were developed today, but it's existing conditions. So it only affects the zoning, it only affects new development.
So the question is, we just approved a zoning request for new houses over in the West Smithfield area last time, if you remember. And that was not in the green, that was not marked before, so it's just been added. Does that have any negative effect on them? Would it have had a negative effect on them, something they had to do differently? I'm just trying to figure out how this affects anything.
I don't think it would have much effect because I think they probably had to address those issues anyway, but I can't say for sure.
And I guess my question is, so what, I'm just confused, I'm confused still on the watershed issues because, I mean, that's not referring to flooding, because where I live at, I'm high ground. If it floods me, Smithfield's underwater the whole town.
Yeah, I
Okay,
know-
so-
I know Franklin Towns went through a whole lot with DEQ, so DEQ may have noticed that the differences and made them dig a deeper pond. So they had a lot of complaints about what DEQ put them through, so I believe that they addressed those issues.
Again, I go back to the same thing, I'm still saying watershed, the deal is, our area is not prone to flooding at all. We're higher than everybody else in Smithfield.
It's the water that flows to the river, and these areas are areas that flow upstream from our water intake, essentially is what it is.
Oh, so we're the ones that feed, so if we pollute the water, we're more dangerous to pollute your water.
Yeah, it's protecting our
I
watershed.
understand, because we definitely are higher, so we definitely would flow down.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
what it is.
If someone cleans my ditches out and let the water flow, we would do that. If not, we just puddle up there in our ditches and wait till evaporation takes place. Different story, okay.
Working on it.
All right, I understand. So really, all we're doing is doing a map adjustment based upon what we're finding. We're correcting an error that we didn't know existed, that we do know exists. That's all we do
Yeah,
is
and
correct an
again,
error.
the watershed and stormwater are both things, programs that the state requires of us,
Right.
and we're not allowed to differ.
We're just doing it.
We can be more restrictive, but we can't be less restrictive.
Well, why would we take that pink area out then?
I'm sorry, we cannot be more, environmentally, we can't be more restrictive than the state, I believe,
Yeah, that's what you said. Can't be more restrictive.
right? Anyway,
This state's not requiring it.
but the state requires this change.
Right.
That makes sense.
Any further questions, comments?
I move we close public hearing.
Hold on, hold
Oh,
on.
sorry, I'm too fast.
Anyone in the audience wishing to speak on this matter? come forward? Okay. Not seeing any.
I move we close public hearing.
Motion and a second to close the public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve the zoning map amendment RZ 24-5, finding it consistent with town Smithfield Common growth management plan and other adopted plans, that the amendment is reasonable and in the public interest.
Motion and a second to approve. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Stephen. Okay. All right, moving now to citizens' comments. Anyone wishing to speak during citizens' comments, please come forward. State your name and address. Okay. I'm not seeing any. We'll now move on to the consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as amended?
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda as amended.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right. Now moving on to our business item. If you guys want to try to get through that, or we can table it.
Here. Yeah. Let's do it.
You want to move on? All right. So discussion regarding bidding of service contracts. Manager, I'll turn it over to you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a relatively simple request. While we don't have a written policy for service contract bidding, we have historically gone out for formal bids for service contracts for at least 15 years. The state has never required it. They don't require it now. And we're getting to a point where our service contracts, last bid we went out for, we had one bid. People are not coming in to formally bid the process. It's costing us money and it's costing us time. We can just as easily go out for quotes using some type of request for quote product to make sure we're gauging apples to apples. Make sure that when we get those quotes that we record them, then we would come to council with a recommendation, still provide you with those quotes, and allow the council to make a decision. This would not apply to things like architects, engineering firms, things of that nature called Mini Brooks Act, where we bid for qualifications first and then negotiate with the person who has the best qualifications for price. This would be service contracts like our HVAC system maintenance for the year, our grass maintenance, lawn maintenance for the year, those type of service contracts that are labor contracts. So we're asking the council to allow us to file a more informal bidding process for those contracts that the state allows for, as opposed to a formal bidding process where we have to advertise, we have to accept bids. If we don't get 3 bids, we have to hand the bids back, we got to re-advertise, we have to start over again, and then open bids, like a $200,000 construction project.
Okay. Any questions for the manager?
Mayor, I have a question. I'll be very brief. So, Mike, based on the way this is presented, if you have a service contract that's going out for bid and you get one bid, I think the whole point of this is to maintain integrity so that it remains confidential. That would we receive additional bids even though that bid is opened? What would your policy?
We go out for quotes all the time now. It'd be the same process. It would remain confidential with the department head until such time as they've got what they've got. And then they would make a decision and bring it to the council. It'd be the same process, it just wouldn't be formal.
But they would open those bids.
There wouldn't be anything to open. If there's a service contract, we would create an RFQ. We would send it out to reputable people that we know, and we would advertise it on our website. People could then just tell us, okay, here's what we would do that job for. We would do it for $50,000 for the year, and that's their bid. It's not a formal bid, it's a quote. And then we would bring those to you. Right now, what we're getting is maybe one bid, and that is hurting us because that person knows that we only have one bid, and they're going to bid high. And it's costing you money.
So you still would have a deadline?
Yes.
And what if you get a bid after that deadline? Because currently it would stand open and you would,
It's not formal. Once we get 3 bids or whatever we want, then we would bring it to council.
But in this instance, you won't always have to have 3 bids.
No, that's correct. If we had one and we were satisfied with it, we could bring it to
Okay, you
council.
can do that.
Yep.
But you'd still advertise, if we're going to advertise it on our website.
Right.
You'd still give a date,
Yeah,
right?
Mhm.
To say, and we wouldn't make a decision until after that date.
correct.
Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes.
And the deadline would be, if it's 15 days, 30 days, whatever, they would only have that deadline.
Right,
And then you bring it to us.
yes. But what that deadline is would be in the bid, and we're not required by any state statute to say if it's 2 weeks or 2 months or,
Yeah.
we would just,
But you would manage the deadline and say, hey,
Right.
by whatever timeframe you choose to have them in,
yes,
and nothing afterwards.
that's correct.
And we're not bound by state statute as far as accepting lowest bid or anything like that.
Well, you're not bound by it, but if you're not going to accept the lowest responsible bidder, you open yourself up to litigation, regardless of the process.
Yeah, that was going to be my concern. My concern was make sure that we still provide equal opportunities for everybody to apply for whatever it is that we're doing. You know, whether you're new or used, new or old, or whatever.
That's correct.
Make sure
We don't want
the
to.
process still is fair for everybody.
Yeah, we're not trying to make it unfair, we're trying to make it actually more fair for the town.
More efficient.
Yes.
well, I think if your policy reflects, like the mayor just mentioned, a deadline, that's critical because if it's submitted and then there's bias or there is dishonesty, you could be subject to that litigation as well.
I agree with the mayor that we need a deadline.
Yeah, I don't know how we make it, how it can be fair if we don't.
Right.
Because you could ask for one and someone could bring one in 30 minutes later and we not give the opportunity for others to bid. To me, that is not fair, in my opinion. And to try to get, the best price. Any other questions or comments?
Legally, the only requirement appears to be that you not do something based on discrimination.
Right.
And so if you went out and give a deadline because you wanted to do it, and then you wanted to investigate some of the bids as for whatever reason you wanted to, it'd be just basically like you hiring, to some extent, like you hiring a painter to paint your house. You know, you might hire somebody you might on occasion hire somebody who was a little late on the bid or didn't have exactly the highest bid or lowest bid, because you'd have some discretion. So it would be giving Mike some discretion, like you just got discretion on who paints your house. I'm trying to give you an example. And that's the way the states apparently looked at it. And some states have very formal, informal procedures, like saying you've got to accept this bid. But the state of North Carolina gives the town some freedom here. And obviously, it could be abused by a town manager, but at the same time, the town manager could exercise his discretion in a way that helps the town. You are giving Mike a little more discretion and a little less regulation. A little more freedom. Are there risks with it? Sure, there's always risk with freedom, but it would be given a little more freedom that a strict policy would require. I hope that was clear.
The only other question I have is when will this take effect and how does it affect if there is any that's outstanding? I don't know if there is.
Any what outstanding?
Like if you are in the process right now and
It wouldn't affect anything right now. We had one recent bid. We only got one. We handed the bid back. We didn't open it, and that process is over unless we choose to move forward with it. It's not going to affect, it'll go into effect immediately, because we got things we need to do before July 1st.
So my question is, do we have I've been looking at this, and I'm trying to see what we're supposed to approve here. I see the article, I read the article from the UNC.
I'm asking you to approve what is in the bullet points on page 56.
Approve these bullet points. I see. Okay.
And if you'd like, we can include in there that we have to set a deadline
Yes.
to be received.
Yep.
Okay. All right, if there are no further questions, do I have a motion?
I have a motion, we approve the new process as defined by the sheet with the bullet added for the deadline.
Second. I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, thank you, gentlemen. All right, I believe that is the last item that we have. Unless you guys want something else to talk about. Anything else? All right. All right, I have a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion, we adjourn.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.